Chapter 433. Withdrawing his fist, Wang Lu wiped the blood on the back of his hand on the rock wall, and then said, I actually don't have any feelings for the devil race. Whether they are flesh and blood or heartless, I don't really care because after the end of the great war of immortals and devils, there is basically no chance to see them, and those little demons and devils are not up to us to deal with. TSK, don't look at me like that, it makes me look indifferent and ignorant. I'm not the lead disciple of Xingjing's sect, so I don't have to take the initiative to bear the heavy responsibility of the rise and fall of the immortal cultivation world. Wang Lu said with a rather sarcastic smile, as if the heavy responsibility of the rise and fall of the immortal cultivation world was an extremely ridiculous thing to him. But you are different. You are the lead disciple of Xingjing's sect, and the future leader of the Wanxian League. Anyone can do whatever they want, but you can't. Your every move has far-reaching implications, and at the same time, you have to be the role model of the Wanxian League. But now, your attitude of genocide is a matter of course, and it is easy to lead the Wanxian League into an extremely dangerous situation. Wang Lu said, and then released a sharp sword chi from his fingertips, which carved a character on the rock wall. Next to the seal, he also carved a portrait of Qionghua's head. Wang Lu's painting skill was quite profound. In just 2 or 3 strokes, the girl on the rock wall was quite charming. However, after the painting was completed, Wang Lu deliberately drew a pinch of rendan between Qionghua's nose and lips, and then shook his head and whispered, Racists are all dregs. Qionghua was full of confusion, but she saw that Wang Lu had no intention of answering. Sure enough, Wang Lu quickly removed the painting on the rock wall, and then said, Senior Sister Qionghua, although you usually look approachable, deep in your heart, you are noble, cold, and stubborn. Even if I break the sky, I can't change your 3 views. So, I chose a more direct way to slap your face. But I have always been a reasonable person. If I didn't say anything and directly slap your face, it would seem that I am a villain, taking advantage of people's difficulties. That's why I talk as I fight. That way I can fight openly and confidently. No matter how Qionghua thought about it, she didn't think that it was honorable to take advantage of her condition to be ruthless, but she did remember Wang Lu's previous words. As Wang Lu said, Qionghua's mind was very firm, and could not be shaken by just a few words. She admitted that what Wang Lu said was very reasonable, but that was only Wang Lu's reasoning. The next time she saw the demon race, she would not hesitate to use the kill immortal sword. But besides her stubbornness, she also remembered that in addition to her own reasoning, there was another reasoning in the world. I know that even if I beat you beyond recognition, you will still do what you want. So, I didn't beat you to change you but to make you remember one thing. Wang Lu said and punched Qionghua's nose, What you want to do is your own business, but as long as you dare to mess around, I will slap your face just like today. You are indeed better than me in a one-on-one fight, but since I started my journey, I have dealt with too many powerful enemies that are more powerful than me, so I don't need you. Qionghua did not speak. Now that she was trapped in someone else's hands, any more words would only bring humiliation to herself. The path of immortal cultivation was long, and the King Pill realm was actually just the starting point. As for the future, let's just wait and see. However, just as Qionghua was ready to endure all the humiliation, Wang Lu walked away from Qionghua and sat on the rock wall next to her. At the same time, Faceless also withdrew the needle on his tail. However, at this time, Qionghua was completely paralyzed and could not move at all. The first lesson is over, let's start the second lesson. Wang Lu said, This lesson is relatively easy. Let me tell you about my strategy. Qionghua remained silent. Actually, when it comes to strategy alone, I have nothing to say. Because even if I did, it would be meaningless to you. I worked hard to lay out the plan and control the other 3 lead disciples. The 3 forces formed an alliance to try to contend against you, but in the end, you broke everything with a single sword. Everyone's style is different, so there is nothing to seek common ground while reserving differences. When it came to Qionghua's world-breaking sword, Wang Lu still looked resentful. Although he had finally stabilized the situation at this time, it was not easy to let go of the fact that Qionghua had turned the tables. However, there is one thing I can teach you, and that is to try to figure out the designer's thinking. From a simple framework alone, you did a good job, but the general direction is wrong. No matter how much you do, it will still be the opposite of what you did. Wang Lu said and pointed his finger to the sky, It's the same old question. What do you think the designer's meaning is in setting this ring in the demon realm? If that group of Dixian just wanted to leave a legacy for us, there is no need to deliberately add the background of the demon realm. But to say that they want us to have a deeper understanding of the demon race. What is the meaning? There is no reason for the Dixian to be partial to the demon race. The great war of immortals and demons started a long time ago. Qianghua still closed her eyes and said nothing, but it could be seen that her heart had been faintly shaken. In this ring her opening was different from everyone else. Because she had understood the truth early, she had never been as sincere as Zhan Zai and the others. She had always looked at this ring from a detached point of view, so there were many things that she did not care about. At this time, listening to Wang Lu's words, it was really a bit strange. Regarding this problem, I have an immature opinion. Wang Lu said, for the demon race we have always had a rule. Fighting against the demon race is greater than the heavens. Even if there is a great hatred between us, we must temporarily put it down, right? Then, if we apply this logic, although we currently have a great hatred with the demon race, under special circumstances, shouldn't we also put down the hatred first? Upon hearing this, Qianghua suddenly opened her eyes. Her mind was greatly shaken, and she looked at Wang Lu in disbelief. What he said was right, this was indeed a possibility. Moreover, in connection with the existence of this group of immortal tombs, it seemed to confirm Wang Lu's statement more and more. You mean? What I mean is there an existence that is more powerful than the demon race that requires the unity of the ancient earth immortals and the demon race to be able to contend against it, and then pass this on in the form of the group of immortal tombs? Wang Lu said, but then shook his head. Of course, my guess is just this. An enemy that can make us put down the distinction between immortal and demon race? Forgive me for my poor imagination, but I really can't think of it. Qianghua suppressed the shock in her heart and thought, you really can't think of it? Or do you think of it but you don't want to say it out loud? Moreover, senior sister Qianghua, don't you think there's another detail here that's worth paying attention to? Qianghua blinked her eyes, signaling him to ask. At this time, the bruises on her face that were violently beaten by Wang Lu had gradually healed, but her blinking action still looked a bit funny. While enjoying the beautiful scenery with great interest, Wang Lu quietly recorded it with the recording jade talisman and explained, don't you think the background setting of this ring is too detailed? The customs of the demon race shown in the immortal dreamland have reached the level of detail. There are many details that I can't find in any ancient book. For example, the forest fairies of Eternal Tree, or the demon forest charming spirit race, they were already on the verge of extinction during the Great War of Immortal and Demon. Their cultural inheritance was completely severed, and they existed as a vassal of other powerful demon race. However, in this ring I was fortunate to see the unique civilization of this race. It is indeed pleasing to the eye, but at the same time, it also makes people curious. How could the civilization that even the demon race could not restore in the past reappear in this ring? At this point, the answer was already obvious. It was just that the answer was too shocking for everyone, so no one said it out loud. The silence lasted for a while. A moment later, Qianghua stood up, and the injuries caused by Wang Lu just now had completely recovered. Today's matter, Qianghua will remember it. In the future I will certainly pay you back. Qianghua said and cupped her hands towards Wang Lu. There was no resentment between her eyebrows, but there was a faint trace of admiration in her eyes. Obviously what she would return in the future was not hatred. Her voice fell and Qianghua's figure gradually faded away. At the same time, from her body, the power of 4 different colored blood spirits gushed out and poured into Wang Lu's body. The next moment, the power of the 5 spirits merged into one, and a blood-red crown slowly condensed from the void and appeared in the hands of Wang Lu. Was this the thing that the 5 chief disciples were fighting for? Wang Lu played with the crown in his hand for a while. It indeed contained a powerful and mysterious power. As the proof of the overlord of this world, as long as he wore it, he would be able to rule the world. However, after the sea of blood created by the kill immortal sword, this world was almost destroyed. What was the point of being the king of the wasteland? Moreover, was it so easy to be the king of the demon world? Anyway, the most important thing in this ring was already in his hands. It was time to get out of here. Here, this thing is for you. Wang Lu said and threw the 5 blood spirits crown on Lan's head. At this time the girl had a blank look on her face. She had just been freed from the state of being possessed by Faceless. Wang Lu did not intend to say too much to her. From the beginning to the end, Lan maintained the low profile that a servant should have. She followed Wang Lu here and there, busying herself like a handyman. But Wang Lu knew very well that this little girl was not as simple as she looked. There were too many secrets hidden in her body, but there was no time to explore them one by one. After handing over the 5 blood spirits crown to Lan, Wang Lu patted her on the shoulder. Next, work hard to rebuild your home, young girl. With that, the world in front of them was torn apart, turning into countless fragments. This long battle for the 5 blood spirits crown had finally come to an end. The immortal dreamland was broken. The next step should be to return to the entrance, which was a bright place with a river of stars. However, this time it was different. After the world was broken, what came into sight was a gray fog. In the fog, a vague and hollow laughter came faintly. Since the background of this level has been cracked to this point, why are you in such a hurry to leave? While speaking, the fog dissipated, and a purple-black fire appeared in front of Wang Lu. Wang Lu shrugged helplessly. Hero, I have something important to do now. Why don't you leave your contact information and I will come to you when I have time? Something important to do? You mean this? While speaking, from the countless pores on Wang Lu's body, a thick black fog gushed out and gathered around the purple fire. However, like a moth flying into a flame, it disappeared as soon as it came into contact with the flame. I've helped you get rid of your heart demon. Now, can you seriously talk to me? Chapter 434. For Wang Lu, the removal of the heart demon was like solving a fatal crisis. There were 2 reasons for the overflow of the heart demon. One was to make a breakthrough and the other was to beat Qianghua. The majority of the reason was because of the breakthrough. The matter of making the king pill, in the eyes of ordinary people, was tantamount to a deviant, whimsical idea. Even Qianghua, with her knowledge, found it difficult to understand its mystery, which showed how rare it was. Behind this rare thing there was naturally a huge price. Wang Lu's king pill was round and plump, golden in color, but in essence, it was a pseudo-pill. The real Jindan stage required a cultivator to put all of their cultivation since they set foot on the path of immortality into it, and then separate the primordial spirit and immortal heart. If there was a slight mistake, the Jindan stage would collapse and the Jade Mansion would collapse. If the primordial spirit and immortal heart were also planted inside, then it would be a dead end. Such a huge risk, naturally there must be thorough preparation. For an ordinary cultivator to break through the king pill, it was as difficult as crossing a heavenly tribulation. Medicinal pills, magical treasures, and arrays were all indispensable. However, Wang Lu suddenly broke through the king pill in the midst of the kill immortal sword sea of blood. No matter how magical the non-phase method was, it was impossible to openly violate the common sense of the immortal path. This pseudo-pill was one of the ultimate life-saving skills that his master had taught him. However, the principle behind it was actually to quench one's thirst by drinking poison, to condense all the strength in one's body into one place. Then, instead of seeking perfection and unity, he would use his strength to twist it together. And this force was Wang Lu's heart demon. Heart demon existed since ancient times, as if the legend of the heart demon had been passed down since the beginning of the written records. The power of the heart demon was endless and no one could stop it. Wang Lu could use the power of the heart demon to forcibly synthesize the pseudo-pill. However, after the pill was formed, the heart demon would collect the price. At that time, all the magical power in his body would flow in reverse, his sword bones would break and his death would be miserable. Such a life-saving method seemed like a suicide method. However, there was always a gap between the pill and the heart demon, and the success or failure of many things in the world depended on that gap. Not to mention that Wang Lu had an existence that was almost the same as the heart demon. Faceless One made his move, temporarily suppressing Wang Lu's heart demon. And Wang Lu considered that the heart demon would not let him go, so he simply put his heart demon oath to the back of his mind and fight to his heart's content. However, after defeating Qianghua and winning the 5 blood spirit crown, the heart demon was, after all, a fatal threat. Faceless One was not omnipotent, and the time to suppress the heart demon was limited. Therefore, Wang Lu planned to return to the sect with the spirit sword heavenly talisman. Although the heart demon seemed to be unsolvable, since this move was passed down by his master, he believed that she must have the antidote. If there was really no antidote, then before he died he would use the name of Wisdom Sect to borrow a huge sum of money from the mysterious Sky Mansion, and then make a will. All of my debts will be inherited by my master. But now he didn't have to worry about whether his master could save him or not, because the person who could save him was right in front of him. It was just that, if he could choose, he would rather take the risk and return to the sect with the heavenly talisman to ask for help. Because the purple-black flame in front of him seemed more terrible than the heart demon. Moreover, he roughly knew what the other party wanted to say, which was not a pleasant topic to hear. The heart demon has been eliminated, can we have a chat? Wang Lu sighed. Mr. might not know, but my heart demon and I have developed feelings for each other for a long time. Now our feelings are deep and I can't bear to separate. I hope Mr. can return my heart demon to me and then let us go. That purple-black flame stagnated for a long time, and then the flame continued to flutter. That muffled voice said, "You have developed feelings for your heart demon for a long time?" Wang Lu confidently nodded and said, "Mister, have you ever heard of a popular story in 9 regions? My girlfriend is a zombie, which tells a touching and tragic story of love between a human and a zombie. Since humans and zombies can get together, what's so inconceivable about my heart demon and I developing feelings for each other for a long time? The inconceivable thing is that the heart demon is ruthless. Even if you are the #1 love sage in 9 regions, and you can even get together with flowers and plants, you can't infect the heart demon." Wang Lu said, "Everything has an exception. There are thousands of heart demons, and this one in my family is especially obedient and cute. There are hundreds of millions of heart demons in the world, which one of them is not familiar to me? Do you want to compete with me in understanding the heart demon?" That purple-black flame suddenly let out a burst of sneer, and then with a loud bang the flame exploded, revealing its true appearance. Its body was more than 30 feet long, covered with bone spurs, red face and fangs, and its eyes were like torches. It was an out-and-out demon. Such a strange shape, such a monstrous demonic flame, such a clear understanding of the heart demon, and even casually released it. The heart demon that had already been deeply rooted in Wang Lu's body was easily dispelled by the opposite party. Who else could it be besides the demon of the demon world? Seeing this demon, Wang Lu inwardly sighed. The various speculations in the immortal dreamland were indeed true, but it was really not enough to make people excited. "It's as you guessed." The strong devil man nodded. "I am the creator of this immortal dreamland, and also one of your so-called ancient earth immortals." "What the hell?" After gawking for a moment, Wang Lu shook his head and wryly smiled. This group of immortal tombs, which was regarded as one of the 10 miracles in 9 regions in the past 1,000 years, unexpectedly had the participation of the demon race. Moreover, it could even be ranked as one of the Dixian. This was even more outrageous than his 7th uncle, who was a slave of Kunlun immortal sect, becoming an elder of Spirit Sword sect. It was as inconceivable as a capitalist joining the party. If the outside world knew about this, who knows how big of a mess it would cause. At least, there would be a big turmoil in the excavation management. Not to mention Xianghua, who was an extreme racist who regarded the difference between immortal and demon as more important than her virginity. If she knew that a demon could become a Dixian, perhaps she would directly go to the heavenly realm and appeal to the higher authorities. However, for Wang Lu, it was not that difficult for him to accept it. In the previous ring, he repeatedly reverse-deduced the designer's idea and gradually had a guess. Now that his guess had been confirmed, it was not that surprising. Since the topic had been opened, Wang Lu no longer shirked and bluntly said, "So, what advice does Senior Dixian have for me?" "Advice?" The devil sneered. "You really do need someone to give you some advice. Let me ask you, do you remember what someone reminded you before the opening of this group of immortal tombs?" Wang Lu frowned, and the memory in his mind quickly returned to a year ago. At that time, the leaders of the 5 super sects joined forces to open the gate, and then, someone from the gate said something, explained the background of the group of immortal tombs, and then gave him a reminder. The group of immortal tombs is the legacy left by the ancestors. If you want to take away the treasures inside, you have to inherit the will of the ancestors, which is a necessary responsibility. Now that the group of immortal tombs had been opened for more than a year, although the overall progress was not fast, no one knew how many cultivators have benefited from it. Moreover, Wang Lu, this rare talent, caused the time to backtrack. However, he never heard anyone say that they shouldered any responsibility. Regarding this issue, the excavation management once had a discussion. However, due to the lack of clues, the final conclusion could only be, the wish of the Dixian was that everyone in the world could ascend to immortality. Therefore we, the later generation of cultivators, must inherit the will, carry forward the spirit of not afraid of hardship and tiredness, continuously strengthen the construction of immortal cultivation civilization, and push the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions to a new level. At that time, Wang Lu also didn't have a mature idea. However, after seeing everything in the immortal dreamland, he vaguely guessed what the so-called responsibility was. That. Wang Lu hesitated to open his mouth. However, before he could finish, the demon interrupted him. "The world is very big, much bigger than what you ignorant later generation cultivators think." These words were said without rhyme or reason, but how fast was Wang Lu's mind? He immediately reacted and said, "You mean there are many worlds? In addition to the 9 regions, the Western continent, and the demon world which we are familiar with, are there other worlds?" The demon froze for a moment and then nodded slightly. Yes, you're not that unbearable, your mind is quite open-minded. As a human being, Wang Lu really didn't feel that there was anything to be proud of in receiving the praise of the demon race, especially in this matter. I just happened to see more than the average person. I once caught a glimpse of the boundless world. In short, in places that we don't understand, there are some unusually powerful hostile creatures such as the ancient beasts, the 12 ancestors of witches, the iron and steel core, the three-body people, and so on, which may endanger the safety of everyone. Therefore, the immortals and demons did not hesitate to join hands to fight against the enemy. However, the great undertaking of fighting against the enemy has not been completed, so they created a group of immortal tombs for the future generations to inherit. There were still many things that didn't make sense in this speculation. For example, if they really encountered a crisis that could lead to the extinction of the world, why was the 9 regions completely ignorant about it for so many years? The Dixian were even willing to accept the demon race, so why didn't they leave any news on the continent? Was it worth keeping it a secret, or was there something else? Moreover, in the face of such a big crisis, it seemed that some people should help. However, the most important thing now was that he had learned a lot of secrets. Could it be that he had to shoulder the responsibility of maintaining the survival of the 2 worlds and contend against the opponents that the Dixian couldn't do anything to? Wasn't this progress a bit too fast? Well, he was a professional adventurer, so it was common for him to challenge and open maps across levels. However, without waiting for Wang Lu to think too much, the demon race said, "The things that you think about are still far away from you. There are many secrets that can't be revealed so quickly. And you guys, especially you, your pace of exploration is a bit too fast." Wang Lu frowned as he listened. The demon race explained, "This group of immortal tombs is a place of experiential learning and also a place of inheritance. There are many kinds of immortal dreamlands, some of which are quite special. You will see some incredible scenes." Backtracking in time? The demon race chuckled. You can think of it as backtracking in time, but every time you successfully stimulate a vision, it means that you are one step closer to the real inheritance. And now, are you really ready for the inheritance? Wang Lu sighed. Of course not. This kind of big thing related to world peace should be handed over to senior sister Cheonghua. As for me, it's enough as long as my wife and children heat up the Kong bed. That's why I said, please return my demon heart sauce to me. Hearing Wang Lu's words, the demon race also laughed. He waved his pair of stone-like thick arms and threw a blood-colored gem. Your demon heart sauce. Wang Lu took the gem and felt that it was scalding hot, which made it difficult for him to control. He quickly put it into the special jade box and then settled down. After sending out the gem, the demon race was once again wrapped in the purple-gray flame, and the gray fog became thicker and thicker. Wang Lu knew that this was probably the signal to leave, so he turned around and left. Soon, the stars shone brightly as he returned to the entrance of the group of immortal tombs. Behind him, in the thick fog, the voice of the demon race was already inaudible. Next, do your best. Later generation cultivator, this is all I can do for you. With that, the fireball collapsed with a bang, and along with it, the astonishing appearance of the body also collapsed. The knotted crimson muscles fell off along with the bone spurs, and the 3 zhang tall giant collapsed just like that. What remained in the original place was a slim and beautiful figure. The woman was tall and fit, and behind her, there was a nimble tail gently swaying. And in the woman's hand, there was a broken and old crown that she was playing with. Chapter 435. It really feels like a lifetime has passed. When leaving the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu let out a heartfelt sigh. However, as soon as his voice fell, his expression suddenly became cold and stiff. He continued to say, "From your sigh, I seem to hear a lot of meanings. Do you want to emphasize the backtracking of time in the group of immortal tombs?" Then Wang Lu shook his head. "I just want to say that my Jindan stage is gone just like that. Just a moment ago, I was still a Taoist master of Jindan stage who could fiercely push Cheonghua to the ground, but the next moment I was beaten back to my original form, reduced to a Shudan waste. If you want the king pill, I can help you. As long as you are willing to believe in the holy light with my help, let alone a mere king pill, even Yuaning stage is just around the corner." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu immediately became curious. "You, this Western Continent heart devil, are actually proficient in our 9 regions immortal path to this point that you even have a way to quickly reach Yuaning stage?" Faceless One explained, "The laws of the Eastern and Western continents are different, but there are also many similarities. The so-called Yuaning stage is nothing more than a rebirth from the dead, turning the spiritless king pill into a spiritless Yuaning stage. Our holy light religion is also good at this. The earliest holy woman of the church was blessed by the sea of holy light, which condensed the holy fetus in her abdomen and gave birth to the Holy Son with a pure body. And as a quasi-saint of the church, it's not difficult for me to help you do the same. After Faceless One finished his words, even though Wang Lu's spirit was firm, he still didn't speak for a quarter of an hour. Forget it. Finally, Wang Lu unceremoniously made a decision. Not to mention that your method of achieving the holy fetus is very different from the main path of Yuanying stage in 9 regions. If I really choose to do so, it would be tantamount to handing over my weakness to a fool, so that she can laugh at me for being pregnant from time to time. Ridiculous stubbornness. You 9 regions people have always advocated giving up everything in order to achieve the supreme immortal path, but you, for a matter of face, cut the shortcut. On this point, the gap between you and your master is really too big. Wang Lu sneered disapprovingly. It was only natural that there was a huge gap between them. In the vast 9 regions, who dared to compete with Wang Wu in moral integrity? Then hurry up and get her pregnant if you have the ability. She has been cultivating for more than 100 years, and she has already ground out 2 king pills, but she still hasn't reached the nascent soul stage. Why don't you think of a way to get her pregnant with twins? If she can stay in confinement for a few years without going out, it would be a great benefit to the entire 9 regions. Along the way, Wang Lu and Faceless One began to study and discuss the issue of Yuanying stage. On the other hand, Wang Lu returned to Spirit Sword Mountain through the array of Fengdu City. Bon voyage. This time he had broken through 3 trials in a row, and his harvest was even greater than he had expected. Helping the sect clear all the prerequisites for the 36 chains was secondary. The secret he had obtained from the last chain, the 5 blood spirits crown, was the truly important harvest. In comparison, the 3 days he had bitterly resisted the immortal slaughtering sword sea of blood, and his cultivation base had skyrocketed, were not worth mentioning. When he returned to Spirit Sword Mountain, he saw that on the 4 divisions peak, several elders had already been waiting there in advance. After landing and inquiring about it, he found out that the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown had been widely spread in the 9 regions. The main reason was that 3 days ago the lead disciple of Kunlun sect, Zhou Mumu, visited the 10,000 Arts sect and challenged Zhan Zai, who had just returned to the sect. The battle for the lead disciple of the 5 uniques was not a trivial matter, especially the matter of the battle, which was by no means a personal matter. Zhou Mumu rashly visited the sect and challenged the lead disciple of 10,000 Arts sect, which, if careless, would cause a dispute between the 2 super sections. However, Zhan Zai tacitly agreed to it. Moreover, he tried his best to appease his fellow sect members and then had a fierce fight with Zhou Mumu in the dojo of the 10,000 Arts sect. The result of the battle was a tie, but the process made the onlookers' eyeballs pop out of their sockets. As everyone knew, the lead disciple of Kunlun sect, Zhou Mumu, was not good at fighting. It was just that, at her current stage of immortal cultivation, her ability to fight in a head-on fight was perhaps the last among the 5 uniques. Although Zhan Zai was also not known for being good at fighting, he could firmly suppress Zhou Mumu. However, in this fight, Zhou Mumu's first move was an eye-opener. She abandoned her usual primal chaos diamond ring and reached out her hand to summon a blood-colored spear. The spear's momentum was great, sweeping away thousands of enemies with an indomitable momentum. Although Zhou Mumu was just at the early stage of the low-rank King Pill and her stage has not yet stabilized, as soon as this blood-colored spear came out, some of the elite disciples of the 10,000 Arts sect who were at the peak of the King Pill stage paid their attention to it. Using their unique Heart Sutra for a long time, they found out that they might not be able to take it. This kind of strength was even better than Zhan Zai before he entered the group of immortal tombs. However, Zhan Zai was not in a hurry. He reached out his hand to the sky and a bolt of lightning fell to the ground. Naturally, his thunder body was stimulated. Then all kinds of wonderful methods came out as he pleased like a rain of flowers. What was even more wonderful was that the combination of the spells was smooth and natural, which was wonderful and unique. Thunder body was a hard and fierce method, but under Zhan Zai's control, the lightning actually faintly showed a bit of gentleness. For the several elders of 10,000 Arts sect who were familiar with him, this was even more inconceivable, because it meant that Zhan Zai's 10,000 motionless immortal heart had finally reached perfection, no longer lacking. And to do this, it meant that he had seen through the barrier of emotion. For the cultivators of 10,000 Arts sect, seeing through the barrier of emotion might be more difficult than having heavenly spirit root. When Zhan Zai went to the group of immortal tombs for experiential learning, everyone thought that he must have a great harvest. However, no one thought that Zhang Zai would actually be able to overcome the most difficult barrier. In terms of strength improvement, his improvement was even greater than Zhou Mumu's blood spear. However, the two people in the fight obviously had a tacit understanding. Although the fight was fierce, it didn't get angry. After a while the two of them stopped fighting. Zhou Mumu turned around and left. Zhang Zai, as the lead disciple, ordered his people to send her off as a distinguished guest. This fight could be said to be inexplicable. The reason for the fight, the process, and the result seemed so unreasonable. Perhaps only the two parties involved knew the truth. First, it was to verify the harvest and the five spirits' power struggle, and second, it was to settle a matter that had been bothering them. The relationship between Zhou Mumu, Zhang Zai, and the couple in the immortal dreamland had completely become a thing of the past with this fight. However, in the eyes of others, regardless of the truth behind it, the huge improvement of the cultivation base of these two people was real and obvious to all. Even though each of the lead disciples of the five uniques had amazing qualifications, it was impossible for them to advance by leaps and bounds in the immortal dreamland for just a month. What exactly did the lead disciples experience in this immortal dreamland? Unfortunately, no one said anything about it. Only the elders of their respective sects knew what their chief disciple had experienced. Therefore, the last person to leave the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu from his Lingjian school, became the only one among the five uniques who knew nothing about the content of the immortal dreamland. Considering that this ring was likely to hide a big secret, the elders could not help but be anxious. Regarding his experience in the group of immortal tombs, Wang Lu had nothing to hide. Especially to the several elders, he even told them about Faceless One. "Well, this is Master's new loyal dog. Come and meet me. These are my several martial uncles. Let me introduce myself first." With that, Wang Lu's complexion suddenly became stiff, and then Faceless One introduced himself. "Hello everyone, I am Faceless, the bearer of the holy light, the guide of the path of truth. Come and believe in the holy light with me." Before he could finish, he was forcibly interrupted by Wang Lu. "Get rid of this disgusting advertisement." Faceless One's voice suddenly turned cold. "Oh, are you guys those useless fellow disciples who only know how to drag Wang Wu down? I've heard her talk about you before, and now I see that you really live up to your reputation. I advise you to obediently hand over the position of sect leader, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite to you guys." Before his voice fell, he heard the flustered and exasperated voice of a woman from the non-phase peak. "How dare you King trick me?" After the small disturbance caused by Faceless One's honesty was over, Wang Wu, whose 1 year's stipend was deducted, took away Faceless One, while Wang Lu stayed behind to finish the unfinished story. It was about the cooperation between the demon race and the Dixian, the doubts about the backtracking of time, and the conjecture about the unknown enemy. In this regard, the several elders obviously knew more about the inside story. After listening to Wang Lu, they looked at each other and exchanged a lot of information without the need of primordial spirit transmission. Unfortunately, Wang Lu did not establish such a deep tacit understanding with the several elders. He could only see the expressions of affection from the several elders, but he didn't know what exactly it was. When he wanted to ask, he saw sect leader Feng Yin waving his hand. "Don't ask about this matter, it's not the time for you to care about it. That demon race is right now, you are not qualified to receive the inheritance of the Dixian. For the time being, you don't need to participate in the exploration of the group of immortal tombs. We, the several old guys, will take over. During this period of time, you should recuperate from your injury and take down the king pill first." The sect leader was indeed the sect leader. He could see the key point at a glance. What Wang Lu needed the most right now was not to continue to explore the group of immortal tombs, but to take down the king pill. On the road of immortal cultivation, if one did not advance, one would fall back. However, the opposite could also be true. The situation forced the cultivator to move forward bravely. For example, right now, after Wang Lu used the power of the demon heart to create the fake king pill, although the demon heart had been taken away by the demon race, it was not to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. The source of the demon heart was Wang Lu himself. From the moment he decided to temporarily use the demon heart to create the king pill, the demon heart would never be at peace. Although the demon heart had been cut off with the passage of time, the demon heart would regenerate like dandruff. The demon heart that restrained him from hurting people with a mortal method was irrelevant. He had already adapted to it after many years of cultivation. However, the one that created the fake king pill was particularly dangerous. There was only one way to eradicate it. By cultivating the real king pill and using the real king pill to cover the fake king pill, the demon heart would not be able to exert its power. Therefore, for Wang Lu, achieving the king pill was a natural need. However, achieving the king pill was easier said than done, especially when the threat of the demon heart was hanging over his head. Let alone Wang Lu, this king pill had accumulated so much that it was rare in the world that he had to face a bottleneck problem with his void spirit root. If he wanted to achieve the king pill in a short period of time, he had to resort to trickery. Thinking of this, Wang Lu could not help but think of Faceless One. Perhaps, when it was time to borrow his power, he should not hesitate. Chapter 436. In the bamboo room of Non-Face Peak, Wang Lu found Faceless One, who had been sealed into a ball by Wang Wu, on the dining table in the living room. Because he was too honest, this time Faceless One was sealed very firmly. The gray sphere faintly flickered with metallic luster, which seemed to be cast from the toughest meteorite iron. Plus, outside the sphere, there were 119 layers of non-phase sword chi personally left by Wang Wu. For Faceless One, this could be described as an indestructible prison. Fortunately, although Faceless One was sealed, he still retained the ability to communicate with the outside world. During the time when Wang Wu went to the stellar peak for her 1 year of fine, Wang Lu found Faceless One and asked for his help. "Oh, you finally decided to believe in holy light?" Faceless One seemed quite excited, and Wang Lu's reaction was even more satisfactory. "I'll give you a chance. In a few days I will go into seclusion to attack the King Pill realm. At that time, reenact our conversation in the Western Continent King's treasure house for me to hear." In the King's treasure house, Wang Lu and Faceless One's love-hate relationship could not be described in words. However, when it came to dialogue, there was only one real dialogue between the two, when Faceless One made a desperate struggle and was suppressed by Wang Lu in non-phase Immortal's heart. For Wang Lu, that dialogue was more dangerous than many life-and-death battles. Because in the face of the temptation of Faceless One, Wang Lu almost couldn't help but agree. Faceless One's conditions were really very tempting. Rationally speaking, even with today's vision, agreeing to his conditions should be able to obtain more practical benefits. And to talk about the problem, it was just a little wrong to his own heart. And in this world, how could one's mind be clear about everything? However, what Wang Lu wanted was precisely to be clear about everything. Those trivial things were fine, but in front of the big right and wrong, he still had to resist all kinds of external temptations and follow his heart, which was not easy. Following his heart was one of the keys for Wang Lu to break through the King Pill. After the last conversation with Faceless One, Wang Lu's mind was purified, as if he had received a good baptism. His non-phase immortal heart cultivation greatly improved. Therefore, looking for Faceless One at this time was to use his pervasive bewitching ability to temper his will. "Sure, but you have to bear the consequences yourself." Inside the iron ball, Faceless One's voice carried a faint smile, but how could Wang Lu not hear the coldness in it? "Now that I am your non-phase sex lackey, for the sake of Wang Wu's face, I will naturally not harm you. But now, in order to advance to the King Pill, you didn't hesitate to borrow the forbidden power, so you should bear the consequences yourself. If you let go of your immortal heart and let me bewitch you, then if you get help, the King Pill will be perfect. That would be a happy ending. But if not, if you are really tempted by me into the sea of holy light, even Wang Wu can't blame you." And is it possible for Wang Lu to be tempted into the sea of holy light? Faceless One's faint laughter expressed his full confidence. In his view, Wang Lu was now like a holy embryo, half a fellow holy light religion person. However, for this dangerous move, Wang Lu also had his own confidence. "Ha, want to make me pregnant? Come and give it a try. Even Wang Wu can't do it, can you?" F***ck. This line sounds a little like someone who's giving up on themselves. For the next 3 days, under the guidance of reward giver Elder Lu Xian, Wang Lu went to the Misty Peak Golden Clay Hall to meditate in seclusion. After 3 alternating days and nights, with the first ray of morning sun shining into the Golden Clay Hall, Wang Lu finally ended his long preparation. At this time, his primordial spirit was full, and his sword bones were firm. In his jade mansion, a shudan echoed with the sunlight outside the window, glittering with golden light. Obviously, it had been accumulated to the extreme and the breakthrough was imperative. At this time, Wang Lu had firmly set foot in the peak shudan stage. That golden round pill was like a substance, and the magical power contained in it was even more than 90% of the real King Pill in 9 regions. However, compared to the real King Pill, although the power of this peak shudan stage was strong, it seemed slightly heterogeneous, and the magical power was not pure. Next, what Wang Lu had to do was to put all of himself into this King Pill, and then separate and transcend, achieving an unprecedented purification. In the process of turning Shudan into reality, not only had his master repeatedly reminded him in the past 3 days, several other elders had also appeared to impart their experience. Were it not for the obstruction of reward-giver elder, the more senior King Pill disciples in the sect could not help but run to cheer for Wang Lu. The lead disciple of Lingjian school, Wang Lu, whose prestige was like the sun in the sky, had officially tried to break through the King Pill. This was a major event whose influence was far from limited to Lingjian school. However, for Wang Lu, what happened next was destined to be different from what people expected. In accordance with the method taught by his master, Wang Lu circulated the 50 layers of non-phase magical power around his body, and then returned to the Shudan stage. At the same time, his primordial spirit went out of his purple mansion, sank into his jade mansion, and began to merge with the Shudan stage. This process was more or less based on Qionghua's trinity. It was just that the non-phase immortal heart did not merge with the Shudan stage. Instead, it slowly spread out and wrapped the fused Shudan stage. For Wang Lu, he only felt that in a blink of an eye, he had entered a mysterious place from the Golden Clay Palace. As far as the eye could see, there was endless chaos in the distance. Through the hazy fog of chaos, he could sometimes see a picture flashing by. However, no matter how hard he tried to look, those pictures were blurred. Wang Lu knew that this meant that his future was not fixed, and everything was possible in the future. Under his feet, there were thousands of forks that converged together. Starting from the first step, every inch of land contained different possibilities. However, among these thousands of forks, only 2 roads were the most open and aboveboard, which led directly to the supreme path. One of them was rich in color, broad and solid, which symbolized the non-phase method that Wang Lu cultivated, which took defense and survival as the primary goal. It also seemed to be the most promising road. However, at the same time, Wang Lu's eyes were attracted by the other road. Straight and unimpeded, it went straight through the sky from his feet. It was so steep that it was almost straight. And not far from the road, a fierce-looking old man was silently looking at him. Wang Lu cupped his hands. "Greetings, Senior Sword Demon." Standing on this road was the sword demon Zhong Xingming, who taught Wang Lu his lifelong primal chaos heaven-splitting sword in the ancient sword tomb. At this time, seeing him again, Sword Demon looked unhappy. He stood with his hands behind his back, and there was a hint of disdain and regret in his eyes. "Ignorant and stubborn." Wang Lu smiled apologetically and then said, "Junior is deeply ashamed to disappoint Senior's high expectations." Sword Demon said, "I am not surprised that you have made today's choice. Since more than a year ago, your primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi has not advanced even an inch. With your talent, it is impossible for you to encounter a bottleneck. The only explanation is that you gave up this road. In the final analysis, you are still reluctant to part with this useless turtle-like method." Wang Lu said, "I am indeed reluctant to part with it. The primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi that Senior passed to me is comparable to the immortal level method from the upper realm. If I can cultivate it according to this method, there is indeed a hope for me to ascend to immortality. However, the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword is Sword Demon's sword, not my Wang Lu's sword." Sword Demon sneered. "Yes, no matter how brilliant other people's path is, it is not your own. It is impossible for it to be 100% compatible with you. And you have a peerless aptitude, so there is indeed a hope for you to step on your own path. If it was 10,000 years ago, after the age of chaos, 9 regions is no longer the 9 regions filled with shining stars and geniuses. Now even the man-made spirit root, this kind of trash, has begun to spread. In my opinion, I am afraid the new age of chaos is just around the corner. And unless you transcend and ascend to immortality, the effect of the environment on you is inevitable. So what if you have the void spirit root? In such a dirty world, what kind of path can you comprehend? Instead of cultivating the supreme path opened by the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword, do you still want to cling to the non-phase method?" Wang Lu just smiled indifferently. "Senior, to be honest, if I only rely on the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, do you think I have a way to survive in the sea of blood of the kill immortal sword for 3 days and reach the pseudo-Dan stage?" Sword Demon was stunned and was speechless. Primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, even in the 9 regions, was the most fierce and powerful sword technique. However, no matter how fierce the sword technique was, it was impossible to cross the gap between Shudan stage and King Pill, and then directly face the kill immortal sword. On this point, it was indeed possible only with the non-phase method. Therefore, it can be seen that the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi is not omnipotent. Not to mention that senior has already passed away. But now, who are you who are standing in front of me? Upon hearing this question, Sword Demon's complexion finally changed slightly. Wang Lu said, "The primal chaos heaven-splitting sword is indeed worthy to be called the supreme path of the sword, and senior is indeed worthy to be the ancient sword demon. If I continue to cultivate this primal chaos heaven-splitting sword, either I can't obtain the path for the rest of my life or I will be transformed by the path of the sword. And senior will then obtain the opportunity to reincarnate, right?" Sword Demon said, "It's not reincarnation. My 3 souls and 7 spirits have long been shattered. Even a great principal golden immortal would not be able to bring me back from the dead. Right now, I'm just a projection in your heart, so you don't have to worry about it. As for the side effect of cultivating the path of the sword, it won't suddenly create a primordial spirit to seize your body. It's just that your temperament will indeed become more and more similar to mine. However, compared with ascending to the immortal world, what's a small change in temperament worth mentioning?" It was just that these words were really lacking in strength. Before Sword Demon finished speaking, his figure gradually faded away. This meant that Wang Lu had begun to give up the path of primal chaos heaven-splitting sword. An immortal level method was certainly gratifying, but if the side effect was so big, then it was better not to cultivate it. Moreover, after leaving the ancient sword tomb, Wang Lu gradually realized the trouble of cultivating the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword. Because the creator of this method, Sword Demon, was not here, he simply could not consult him about the problems in cultivation. And this primal chaos heaven-splitting sword was an unconventional sword. Many of the tricks were designed for Sword Demon himself, so it was quite difficult for him to adapt it to himself. In contrast, although the appearance of non-phase method was not good, it played a role at the critical moment, which made the immortal level method dumbfounded. More importantly, this was a tailor-made method for him. During the cultivation period, no matter what problem he encountered, there would be someone who could give him pointers. This kind of advantage was something that the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword could never reach. However, thinking about giving up this immortal level sword, even if Wang Lu was a decisive person, he still couldn't help but hesitate. While he was hesitating, a familiar voice came. In the final analysis, the best way is to combine the advantages of the two. In fact, when you just left the ancient sword tomb, you also took this road. It's just that, as your cultivation base gradually deepened, you found that the road of fusion became more and more difficult. Therefore, you temporarily stopped cultivating the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword and wholeheartedly cultivated the non-phase method. While speaking, the white figure of Faceless One appeared in the middle of the 2 paths leading to the primal chaos. But now, I can give you an opportunity to combine the 2. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu smiled because he had already guessed the next sentence. "Come and believe in the holy light." Chapter 437. Holy Light religion was second to none in the Western continent. Under its command were thousands of troops and thousands of strong people. The sea of Holy Light was even more vast and boundless. If it was personified, it would be a true immortal or even a higher-level existence. However, compared to that huge amount, the all-embracing characteristic of the Sea of Holy Light was more worthy of attention. Holy Light religion had hundreds of millions of believers in the Western continent. However, whether these believers were poor or rich, healthy or sick, as long as they had a devotion to the Holy Light, it was possible to get the gift of the Sea of Holy Light. This ability to unify the different wills of tens of thousands of people was exactly what Wang Lu urgently needed. Primal Chaos Heaven-Splitting Sword Qi and non-phase method were like an irreconcilable spear and shield. Since Wang Lu left the ancient sword tomb and inherited the legacy of Sword Demon, the elders of Lingjian School have spent a lot of effort on him. After all, an immortal level method that could lead to the ascension after the Age of Chaos was self-evident. It was comparable to the Stellar Sword method of Lingjian School. However, even with the wisdom of the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall, they ultimately failed to come up with a feasible plan. Therefore, out of practical considerations, Wang Lu suspended the practice of Primal Chaos Heaven-Splitting Sword and concentrated on non-phase method. But now, Faceless One proposed a rather tempting plan. As long as he believed in the Holy Light, he could perfectly integrate Primal Chaos Heaven-Splitting Sword and non-phase method, combining the strengths of both. These two were top level in their respective fields. If they could be combined into one, surpassing the immortal level would not be a problem. However, was there really such a beautiful thing in this world? Of course there is. Faceless One affirmatively replied, "Holy Light is omnipotent." Wang Lu sneered. Unfortunately, the omnipotent Holy Light could not let you win 2 battles in Taba City. In the past, the Wanxian League expedition to the Western continent, led by Supreme Tianyu, the 9 regions cultivators fought against Holy Light religion. In the end, the power of the 2 popes was indeed shocking to the people of 9 regions. However, in the final analysis, it was the people of 9 regions who had the last laugh. Supreme Tianyu and Feng Yin Taoist master each defeated their opponents, which almost made the top level of Holy Light religion collapse. If Holy Light was really omnipotent, why were the spokesmen of Holy Light religion so incompetent? That's because they're only representatives, not the Sea of Holy Light itself. Faceless One naturally replied, after thousands of years of development, Holy Light religion has established its ruling position in the Western continent. During this period, it not only created the glory of Holy Light, but also caused unprecedented internal friction. Wang Lu said, "You, the founder of the Priory of Zion, have the nerve to accuse internal friction?" Faceless One said, "Were it not for the Priory of Zion to unify the opposing voices, the collapse of Holy Light religion would have been several hundred years earlier. Due to the long development of this huge organization, the internal checks and balances have resulted in the power being too scattered. If the Pope could receive more of the gift of the Sea of Holy Light into his own body, even if it was only 30% more, it would be useless even if the entire army of the 9 states attacked him that day." Unfortunately, after the civil strife 1,000 years ago, Holy Light religion limited the authority of the Pope and set a limit on the amount of Holy Light that could be used to avoid a disaster. However, under the restriction of the Pope, although he can shake the Western continent, in the face of the foreign invaders, it would be the Holy Light believers who suffer the bitter fruit. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu could not help but wrinkle his brows. This statement was unheard of. Of course it's unheard of because even the high level of the church is not clear about this. Only a few people participated in the secret gathering 1,000 years ago, which did not include any of the high level of the church at that time. In particular, it was kept a secret from the Pope. Wang Lu could not help but smile, thinking that the group of Holy Light believers were actually smart. This kind of thing was indeed better to keep secret. Otherwise, if any Pope knew that his strength was actually limited by others, perhaps he would not be reconciled. And since there was a capable person who could seal the power of the Pope, naturally, there would be an astonishing Pope who could lift the seal. However, that group of people could actually keep this secret for 1,000 years. This was Tooch. Only the dead can keep secrets. Faceless One gave the answer in an understated manner. As for why he, a living person, could know about this, that was another story and Wang Lu did not care. In short, what you mean is that the Sea of Holy Light is omnipotent, but its power in the human world is limited by others. But in 9 regions, Faceless One said, there is no Holy Light religion in 9 regions. As long as you are willing to convert to Holy Light, you are the only spokesperson in the human world. Wang Lu said, then where does the Sea of Holy Light come from? Faceless One said, don't you have a wisdom sect? For a sect leader like you, it's not difficult to change the doctrine a little. In fact, I can now clearly see the power of faith lingering in your body. Unfortunately, you don't know how to use it. Wang Lu faintly smiled and did not say much. It was not only the Western continent people who were good at playing with faith. 9 regions also had the power to gather people's hearts. However, there was indeed no such strange existence as the Sea of Holy Light. In general, all religions must have a personified totem of faith or an ancestor or a god. But it was rare for Holy Light religion to regard nothingness as an idol. Of course, if you are not interested in the spread of Holy Light, I can do it for you. Just give me the position of Holy One, and then leave the rest of the work to me. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. This Faceless One was indeed worthy to be an expert in bewitching people. His words left almost no room for refusal. Calling this guy into the King Pill was indeed a dangerous move but also a clever move. At least with Faceless One, Wang Lu could be more determined to abandon the path of Sword Demon. As for the difficult-to-refuse condition that he put forward. Very well, I'll do as you say. Give me the seed of Holy Light, and then I will appoint you as the Wisdom Sect's Holy One. You will spread the Holy Light faith. As soon as this remark came out, Faceless One was immediately stunned. Wait a minute, what did you say? Wang Lu said with a smile, I said as you said, I have decided to convert to Holy Light. But aren't you? Wang Lu said, I originally thought that no matter in the East or West continent, the Sea of Holy Light is connected. Once the seed of Holy Light is implanted, it is tantamount to having a pair of shackles in the body. But since you said that there is no Sea of Holy Light in 9 regions, and I will be the founder of Holy Light religion, then why not? Quickly, 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 I can't wait to convert to holy light. Quickly implant the seed of holy light in me, let me be the founder, win the fair, rich and beautiful woman, and ascend to the peak of life. You don't care about the holy embryo? Do you really think I care? Underscore on the non-phase peak, the door of the simple bamboo room was pushed open. A woman in simple and elegant clothes dragged her heavy and stumbled in and then put the heavy bottle of wine on the table. How does it feel to be caught in a cocoon of your own making? On the wooden table, the dim ball slightly moved. Unexpected. Faceless One's voice was slightly tired. The woman in white chuckled. Unexpected? You obviously suffered a loss from him once, but you don't have a long memory. Faceless One was speechless. The woman in white's laughter was pleasant to hear, but how could he not perceive the murderous intention in it? His bet with her was, in the end, his loss and the price of failure. However, your ability to seek life in the midst of death is indeed not bad. Wang Wu said and then took the initiative to pour a glass of wine and put it in front of the ball. For your quick wit. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she took the glass and drank it. In any case, the ball couldn't drink wine, so this wine couldn't be wasted. In the immortal dreamland, when Wang Lu was ready to use you as a sacrifice to reveal his trump card, you were able to resolve his doubts in just a few words, making him mistakenly think that you are the reinforcement that I sent. This is your ability. Faceless One chuckled. Actually, until the end he never fully trusted me. He wanted me to suppress the devil in his heart to achieve the pseudo-core. If I had a bit of a different thought, I would be the first one to be torn apart by his devil. Although he didn't believe you, he didn't kill you in the end. Instead, he allowed you to walk to the end as his assistant. It can be seen that regardless of whether what you said was true or false, it had a great influence on him, and your existence has indeed proved your value. And this is completely unexpected to me. I originally intended to use you as the bait for him to achieve the king pill, but in the end, you seized the opportunity to linger on. Unfortunately, in the end, it still fell short of success. Wang Wu said with a smile. Fell short of success? Not really. In the immortal dreamland, you helped little Lu win against the little girl of Xingjing sect, and the credit is real. Didn't I promise not to kill you? Are you worried that I won't keep my word? Faceless One didn't speak. Regarding the credibility of the master of non-phase peak, people who knew about it would not say too much. And Wang Wu very confidently ignored this question and continued. Your performance in the immortal dreamland proves that you have stolen the heaven's secret and found a way to survive. Therefore, I will not kill you, but I can spare you from the death penalty. It's hard to escape punishment. My holy light seed was fancied by you, which can be used to resolve the contradiction between Wang Lu and the king pill. However, if the holy light seed is to play its role, it needs the support of the sea of holy light, which requires someone to manage the sea of holy light. Then we made a bet. If Wang Lu couldn't see through the truth, then you would still plant the holy light seed and help him reconcile the two methods. But then you will manage the sea of holy light and become the Lord of Faith. In the future, if Wang Lu needs the support of the sea of holy light, he would have to negotiate with you on an equal footing. Faceless One said, unfortunately Wang Lu actually saw through the truth. As a result, I can only bow down to him as the Holy One. How does it feel to fall short of success? The ball trembled slightly. Faceless One said with a slight smile, not bad. In the future, if the Lord of Holy Light of 9 regions has the ability of Wang Lu, I can rest assured. Wang Wu was slightly surprised. Unexpectedly, you are the kind of person who would bravely carry your girlfriend to bed for the sake of lifelong sexual happiness. Faceless One indifferently responded, everything I do is for the sea of holy light. As long as I can better spread my faith, I don't care about personal gain or loss. To be able to get strong support in this foreign land of 9 regions is really a pleasant surprise. Wang Wu finally had nothing to say. She happily drank another cup of wine, put the emerald green wine cup on the ball, and then left the bamboo room while laughing, flying to the Misty Peak's golden clay hall. On the other side, Wang Lu's king pill had come to an end. Chapter 438. Using the adhesive nature of the holy light to forcibly combine primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi and non-phase method, the technique used to cross the 2 continents of 9 regions and western continent, was simply an unprecedented feat. However, because it was a feat, the risk was also self-evident. The combination of 2 immortal-level methods, every step was full of unknowns, not to mention the critical juncture of the king pill. A little bit of carelessness would cause one's soul to fly away and scatter. However, since he had chosen this path, he could only resolutely walk on it. After seeing the domineering power of primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi and experiencing the unshakable stability of non-phase sword chi in the kill immortal sea of blood, abandoning any one of them was as painful as castrating himself. From then on he could no longer be a complete man. Right now, as Wang Lu was integrating his primordial spirit into his void core, there were still thousands of forks in front of him. The two widest paths, which symbolized the non-phase method and primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, were gradually being pulled into one by the Holy Light Seed. The Holy Light Seed was personally planted by Faceless One. A golden seed was buried under his feet and soon took root and germinated. The underground root vein connected the two paths, and with the unique toughness of living things, it forcibly pulled them closer and closer. It was difficult to say how much of it was brute force and how much was a trick. Given that this was unprecedented in 9 regions and Western continent, no one could give a reasonable standard. Wang Lu only knew that when the two paths were completely combined into one, it was also the time when his King Pill would be completed and he would truly set foot on the supreme immortal path. Becoming a Taoist master of the King Pill was a critical breakthrough for cultivators on the road of immortal cultivation. When a cultivator comprehended the great Tao of heaven and earth, they would condense their own Tao in their jade mansion. Thus, their void core would turn into a real one, and inanimate objects would initially have spirituality. Only by carrying one's own Tao could one be qualified to truly become a cultivator, which was also the origin of the word Taoist master. For Wang Lu, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth was not a difficult thing. With his void spirit root, almost from the moment he was born, the great Tao of heaven and earth was displayed in front of him. Condensing his own Tao was also not difficult. If an ordinary cultivator could barely achieve any Tao, it would be enough for them to rejoice. If they didn't have a superior cultivation method or inheritance, they wouldn't even have a choice. However, as the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, there were too many paths that Wang Lu could choose. Among the thousands of forks under his feet, no one knew how many of them could lead to a very high level. If he continued to cultivate step by step, the achievement of Supreme was just around the corner. However, what he wanted was not just the title of True Lord, nor was it limited to ascension. Whatever he could do now, he wanted to do it to the best of his ability. Otherwise, it would be a waste of his long and solid accumulation in the Shudan stage. He had stayed in the Shudan stage for too long. Since he broke through Shudan stage with the help of the mountain spirit in Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu had experienced a lot of experiential learning in this stage. The trip to Grand Cloud Mountain, the trip to Western Continent, and the group of immortal tombs, any one of them could be called legendary. If it was someone else, having a legendary experience once in their life was already very rare. One fortuitous encounter was enough to make people reborn. However, Wang Lu had experienced 3 experiential learning, yet he still stayed in Shudan stage. Such accumulation was difficult for any cultivator in the Wanxian League to compare. In the immortal dreamland, Wang Lu relied on this solid accumulation to contend against Qianghua with his pseudo-core. Then, the opportunity to break through to a higher stage finally came. The 50 layers of non-phase method was unified, and the magical power was smooth and smooth. Combined with the non-phase sword, which was also at the peak of the 50 layers, it was almost effortless to condense the King Pill, and there was no need for external help. However, such a stage was undoubtedly a bit oversaturated. Now, it seemed that when his master forced him to cultivate to the 50th layer, perhaps she had already foreseen that Wang Lu's choice of Tao was no longer limited to non-phase method. Therefore, she used the 50th layer of non-phase method to ensure that even if Wang Lu had a change of heart in the future, non-phase method would still leave an indelible mark on his Tao. Realizing this, Wang Lu didn't know what to say. This kind of mentality of if I can't get you, at least I have to get your child was really worthy of being the master of non-phase peak who had been destitute all his life. However, Wang Lu didn't intend to abandon non-phase method, or rather, even if he had the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, he still intended to use non-phase method as the main body to shape his own Tao. Because this was simply a problem that couldn't be avoided. Non-phase method was not only the enlightenment method, but also accompanied him all the way to the present, experiencing countless hardships and dangers. When condensing the King Pill, a cultivator's Tao should bear his own past, present, and future. And non-phase method was his past and present. To condense the King Pill, how could he avoid non-phase method? Following the 51st layer of non-phase Heart Sutra taught by his master, Wang Lu began to circulate his magical power in the King Pill. The highly dense magical power stirred his primordial spirit, and a bit of true yuan was born from the darkness. At the same time, the 51st layer of the non-phase Heart Sutra was instantly completed. Wang Lu saw that the thousands of paths began to sway and twist, and the two paths that were entangled by the holy light seed became more closely combined. The 51st layer of the non-phase Heart Sutra is really easy, and its only role is to strengthen the extensibility so as to combine with other methods. JSK Master, you really put in a lot of effort. Since Wang Lu broke through the 50th layer of the non-phase Heart Sutra under heavy pressure, the 51st layer of the non-phase Heart Sutra was only taught by Wang Wu when Wang Lu was preparing to break through the King Pill. Considering that Wang Lu's non-phase method was created by Wang Wu, perhaps it took her a lot of effort to deduce this non-phase Heart Sutra for him to break through the King Pill. And this was also the reason why, even though Wang Lu was deranged by Wang Wu from another point of view, he still respected her as his master. Regarding his master's kindness, Wang Lu gladly accepted it. Then, on the basis of the 51st layer of the non-phase method, he resolutely stepped forward and integrated the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi into it. Boom! Wang Lu suddenly heard the sound of thunder in his ears. The primal chaos world was like a crystal ball that was hit by a heavy hammer. Countless fine cracks appeared on it. The two tightly entangled paths began to struggle to break free. The entire King Pill in his jade mansion also trembled and tore, as if it was about to split into two. Wang Lu was shocked and quickly restrained the two, stopping the splitting trend. However, the progress was extremely difficult. Even with all his strength, he could only barely maintain the balance. However, he did not dare to relax. The splitting of the King Pill was equivalent to cutting a person in half, not to mention that he had already immersed his primordial spirit into the King Pill. The splitting of the King Pill might only be a waste of cultivation base, but the splitting of the primordial spirit would undoubtedly lead to death. However, at this time Wang Lu suddenly remembered something. The King Pill was split into two? Suddenly Wang Lu suddenly thought of his master's double King Pill. Did she also experience a similar situation? The two incompatible paths eventually separated from each other, creating the double King Pill? The unprecedented double King Pill in 9 regions? Then, did his master teach him the 51st layer of the non-phase method in order to let him follow her path? Double King Pill, it sounded like a good idea. If he could really coordinate the coexistence of the two King Pill, when he needed to attack he could use the heaven-splitting sword chi, and when he needed to defend he could use the non-phase sword defense. Although the switching would inevitably be sluggish, it could still be regarded as a bright path. However, that was his master Wang Wu's path, not the path that was suitable for him. His master's aptitude was mediocre, and the lack of the attribute of her spirit root made her have no other choice. However, he himself had the dignified void spirit root, so he shouldn't stubbornly stick to his master's path without thinking about making progress. Along the way he had faced many seemingly impossible difficulties, so there was really no reason to retreat at this juncture. In the chaotic golden core space, in the face of the two main paths that were about to separate, as well as the seed of holy light that was about to be overwhelmed in the middle of the main path, Wang Lu was calm and collected. His primordial spirit continued to penetrate and penetrate again and again, unreservedly depositing it in a paste-like golden core. There was no immediate change in the situation, and the separation of the two paths was not stopped. However, Wang Lu was not in a hurry. He just continued to immerse his primordial spirit, maintaining his strength, and then waited for the miracle of time. The achievement of the King Pill was never achieved overnight. According to the records of the Lingjian school, it was not uncommon for the fast ones to take 2 to 3 days, and the slow ones to take 10 to 15 days. Of course, there were those who were particularly unlucky. They had to retreat in the Golden Clay Palace for 3 years. Later, the elders of the sect couldn't help but come to check, only to find that the person who tried to break through had been possessed by the devil. They had been dead for many years and their corpses had dried up. Since the beginning of his cultivation, Wang Lu had made rapid progress in everything he did. Now, he didn't care about stopping for a while in front of the King Pill. In the space of the King Pill, the monotonous and boring life made time seem to pass by quickly. After an unknown amount of time, the immersed primordial spirit was suddenly awakened by a cool feeling. In the space of the King Pill, the fine cracks, the chaotic fog, and the two bright paths had all disappeared. Only the intense, pure, and brand new magical power filled it and maintained its movement in a mysterious rhythm. The cycle was endless. When a cultivator was in the Shudan stage, the spiritual power was highly condensed like a round pill. However, at that time, the spiritual power was just condensed, and there was no qualitative change. Until now, Wang Lu found that this kind of spiritual power had become new and strange. It was not the non-phase magical power that had accompanied him for more than 10 years, but it had become more stable, tenacious, and full of vigor. So that's how it is. This is the real King Pill's spiritual power. Compared with it, the previous spiritual power is just like a knockoff. Feeling this brand new power, Wang Lu suddenly surged with infinite emotion. That was the feeling of being a cultivator, of being moved by the miracle of the immortal path. Although many people collectively called the spiritual power of the cultivators, but if it was carefully subdivided from the beginning of the King Pill Taoist master, the spiritual power would evolve into true elemental energy, and the magical ability would rapidly expand. This was especially true for the disciples of the famous sections. Once the King Pill passed, their strength would simply double. As for Wang Lu, his harvest was more than any other cultivator of the King Pill. The new power had far exceeded the scope of the original non-phase method. If Wang Wu cultivated the non-phase method, then his original cultivation should be the modified non-phase method. Compared to the original version, all aspects of it were more refined. And now it should be called the non-phase method, the devil's modification, right? The primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi had been truly integrated into the King Pill, becoming a power that he could freely control. Of course, Wang Lu did not intend to use it immediately because at the critical moment, it could be used as a very strong card. But now, for the time being, he opened his eyes and re-examined the world with the eyes of the King Pill Taoist master. Thinking about it, Wang Lu opened his eyes with a smile. Then he saw the door of the golden clay hall. With a stunned face, his master hurriedly put her finger in front of her lips. In his primordial spirit, his master's pleading voice rang out, "Don't talk, let me hide for a while. Old Third, that son of AB***, is chasing me to death. Isn't it just a few tens of thousands of spirit stones? Is there a need to be so stingy? That stupid Feng Yin inexplicably deducted my annual stipend, and I only took out a few tens of thousands of spirit stones from the treasury. That's very kind." Wang Lu was speechless. Damn, as the Taoist master of the King Pill, the first thing he saw was such an ugly thing, it was really touching. The next moment, Wang Lu gently opened his mouth, and the true yuan in the King Pill surged, so that his voice instantly spread throughout the 12 peaks of Spirit Sword sect. Even many of the protective arrays couldn't stop it. "I've caught the escaped fifth elder. For 998 spirit stones, I'll bring the escaped prisoner home. King dare to sell me?" At the same time, the door of the golden clay hall suddenly opened. "Fifth junior sister, accept the sect's punishment." Chapter 439. Spring left and autumn came, and it was the annual Autumn Fat Day of Lingjian School. On this day, the chefs of the major cafeterias of Lingjian School were busy, offering a sumptuous meal for the sect's disciples. Among them, the Carefree Peak Cafeteria specially invited a team of famous chefs from the Wanxian League's Heavenly Fragrance School. Their leader, Master Bai Chia, was impressively a Taoist master of Yuanying stage. His immortal feast had been famous in 9 regions for more than 100 years. Several disciples of Master Bai Chia had also inherited 50 to 60% of his skill. In the Carefree Peak, dozens of tables of wine and dishes were set out one after another. For a time, it was as if there was a rainbow pillar of light rising to the sky on the Carefree Peak. Even the mountain protection array could not cover it. Under the impact of the pillar of light, it was on the verge of collapse, as if it could not resist the temptation of delicious food. What was more valuable was that the dishes cooked by Heavenly Fragrance School could not only satisfy the appetite, each dish had a unique effect, which after eating was greatly beneficial to one's cultivation. This was also the result of the growing reputation of Lingjian School, the expansion of business, and the increasing influence of the sect in recent years. In the past, the 6th elder, who was in charge of the sect's financial power, would not agree to spend a huge amount of money to hire a chef. Moreover, the masters of Heavenly Fragrance School could not be invited by money alone. For example, on this year's Autumn Fat Day, there were as many as hundreds of sects that submitted invitations to Heavenly Fragrance School, but only 2 or 3 of them could get their Yuanying stage masters to make a move. This year, even Royal Soldier sect was not able to taste the craftsmanship of Heavenly Fragrance School. Moreover, the best craftsman in Heavenly Fragrance School, Master Bai Chia, uncharacteristically did not go to Xingjing sect, but instead came to Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. In fact, the biggest reason why Heavenly Fragrance School attached so much importance to Lingjian School was that, in recent years, Lingjian School's status in the group of immortal tombs had been rising, and its influence on Plentiful City and the group of immortal tombs even overwhelmed that of Xingjing sect. And in recent years, Heavenly Fragrance School happened to need to collect food resources from the group of immortal tombs, thus the two sides hit it off. At the same time, the lead disciple of the younger generation of Heavenly Fragrance School would go to the group of immortal tombs next year to receive experiential learning. At this time he came to Lingjian School to seek the experience of the currently recognized number one person in the younger generation. A year ago, the 5 super sects of the Wanxian League sent their lead disciples to the group of immortal tombs at the same time to explore their respective series of immortal dreamlands. The 5 lead disciples accidentally encountered each other in the immortal dreamland and launched a fierce competition. The final result was particularly intriguing. In theory, the lead disciple of Xingjing sect, Qianghua, had harvested the vast majority of the energy in the immortal dreamland with the Kill Immortal Sword. Hundreds of millions of creatures had been purified by the immortal sword, and the resonance between Qianghua and this immortal treasure had achieved an unprecedented great improvement, which was even rarer than the improvement of the realm. With Qianghua's aptitude, there was no bottleneck in her cultivation during the King Pill period. If she continued to cultivate step by step, then advancing to the nascent soul stage was almost guaranteed, and even reaching the deity transformation realm would not be difficult. However, the immortal slaughtering sword was an immortal artifact, so obtaining a perfect resonance with it was something that could only be chanced upon by luck. Nowadays, in the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, the number of cultivators who could perfectly resonate with an immortal artifact could be counted on one hand. In addition to Qianghua, the improvement of Zhan Zai of 10,000 Arts sect, Zhou Mumu of Kunlun sect, and Xiang Liang of Royal Soldier sect was also obvious. Their overall strength was at least 10% higher than before, which meant that if they fought with their original selves, the outcome could be determined within 10 rounds. Then it was Wang Lu's turn. As the final winner of the 5 Blood Spirit Crown competition, his harvest should be the biggest. Even after Qianghua returned to the mountain, she vaguely showed her admiration for Wang Lu. Therefore, the world was curious about how many things he had harvested in this ring. What was the magical effect of the 5 Blood Spirit Crown? Unfortunately, unlike the other 4 disciples, Wang Lu immediately went into closed-door training as soon as he returned to the mountain. The reason was that he wanted to break through the King Pill stage. This also surprised those who thought that Wang Lu had already broken through to the King Pill stage. What was even more amazing was that Wang Lu's closed-door training was shockingly long. For a whole year, he was in closed-door training in the Golden Clay Hall, which was specially designed for the disciples of the Misty Peak to break through to the King Pill stage. If the elders of the Lingjian school hadn't confirmed that his breathing was stable during his closed-door training, many people would have suspected that he had failed to break through and died. Without the various anecdotes brought by Wang Lu, the 9 regions seemed a bit lonely. However, last month the news that Wang Lu had successfully broken through to the King Pill stage finally came out, which shocked the cultivators who paid attention to Wang Lu and made them look forward to his next action. Wang Lu had always been a person who couldn't bear loneliness. In his more than 10 years of cultivation, he basically went into closed-door training on the mountain for a few years, and then came out to do a big thing. After that, he would go back to closed-door training for a few years, and then come out again to do another big thing. Now that he had been in closed-door training for a year and had successfully broken through to the King Pill stage, he ought to go down the mountain and show off his skills. However, Wang Lu was contrary to his usual behavior. After advancing to the King Pill stage, he just stayed in the mountain and refused to meet any foreign guests. During this period, Qianghua invited him to drink tea in Plentiful City, but he was declined. His arrogance was even bigger than that of many elders. Now, thanks to the visit of the Heavenly Fragrance School's cultivators, outsiders had the opportunity to see Wang Lu. In the Misty Peak cafeteria, the lead disciple of the Heavenly Fragrance School, Gao Tang, curiously looked at the handsome young man in front of him and couldn't help but think of all kinds of legendary stories about him. In Shudan stage, he went to the Western continent, cooperated with the gods of the Western continent, and plotted to kill the Holy One of the Western continent, who was equivalent to a supreme. More than a year ago, he defeated the famous Qianghua fairy, and was now regarded as the strongest cultivator of his generation. And compared to his cultivation base in the immortal path, his strategy was even stronger. And he was fortunate enough to listen to Wang Lu's strategy experience, which was a rare and precious experience. It was just that, no matter how he listened to it, it felt strange. The second is to strengthen the leadership of the organization. The sect should clarify the leadership responsibility, set up a strategy team led by the elder in charge, and the backbone of each department should participate. At the same time, clarify the division of responsibility, to ensure that each link of the work has a corresponding person in charge. The fourth is to firmly grasp the implementation. We should earnestly strengthen the implementation of the task deployment in each link. Wang Lu's patient and meticulous lecture had lasted for almost half an hour. However, Gao Tang, who had always boasted of his good perception, felt dizzy. He only felt that every word that entered his ears could be understood, but when connected, it was like a mountain of clouds and mountains of fog. In the legend, there was a secret book called the Wordless Heavenly Book, which could only be understood by the predestined person. Now, it seemed that he had obtained a similar secret book. Although there were words in the heavenly book, its true meaning was still difficult to understand. Or rather, could it be that Wang Lu's experience in creating many miracles was this kind of bureaucratic work report? Heavenly Fragrance School did not hesitate to become enemies with Shengjing sect and sent a luxurious team of chefs to Spirit Sword Mountain just for this kind of experience? As if seeing Gao Tang's confusion, Wang Lu, who was reclining at the dining table, suddenly looked up from the manuscript in his hand and said with a playful smile, "Junior brother Gao Tang, Heavenly Fragrance School's culinary skill is the best in 9 regions. Your respected master Bai Chia's famous white sliced fragrant meat once lured a certain mountain to condense its spiritual wisdom, giving birth to a mountain spirit, which has the magical effect of turning life and death. May I ask, if you were to make that plate of white sliced fragrant meat, would it have the same effect?" Gao Tang somewhat ashamedly said, "I'm afraid it would be difficult even for 10% of my master's skill." "Then why didn't Master Bai Chia teach you the essence of white sliced fragrant meat?" Gao Tang said, "Cooking must be done step by step. My basic skill is far less than my master's. No matter how hard I work, my achievement in cooking a dish alone would be limited." Wang Lu said, "Therefore, in view of the fact that your IQ and ability are too different from mine, even if I teach you my experience, it would be meaningless to you. At present, the most suitable thing for you is this simple and vigorous report." Gao Tang couldn't help but ask, "But what I said just now, most of it is aimed at the overall requirements of the sect, not personal guidance. Moreover, those methods can't be implemented in a day. This is also," Wang Lu said with a smile. "Oh, I see. You want a quick way? That's simple. You quickly return to the sect and use the authority of the lead disciple to steal the sect's secret manual. Steal as much as you can, and then take the secret manual and betray the sect and seek refuge in the Royal Soldier sect. The Royal Soldier sect is one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, so their sect's construction can definitely meet my requirements, which can save you 80 to 90% of your effort. And they have been coveting your Heavenly Fragrance School's divine marching provisions for a long time. As long as you offer them the secret manual and promise to serve the Royal Soldier sect wholeheartedly, naturally, you will get many benefits." Gao Tang angrily said, "Senior brother Wang Lu, don't go too far." Wang Lu's eyes turned cold, and the reflection of the king pill flashed in his eyes. In a split second, the biting cold aura made Gao Tang's whole body cold. The Shudan in his jade mansion issued a muffled sound and his magical power dissipated. As the most outstanding disciple of the current generation of Heavenly Fragrance School, he had cultivated for 30 years and had reached peak Shudan stage. However, unexpectedly, he couldn't withstand Wang Lu's casual stare. Let's be clear, the exploration of the group of immortal tombs has never been done by just moving your mouth. I can repeatedly create miracles because behind me is one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. The methods that I cultivate, the knowledge that I dabble in, the pills that I take, and the teammates that accompany me are all top level in 9 regions. Although your Heavenly Fragrance School is one of the top-ranked sects, when it comes to the exploration of secret areas and the actual combat ability of cultivators, it's only at the level of a middle-ranked sect. And you, as the lead disciple, have amazing talent in cooking, but your cultivation is only at the level of my Lingjian School's outer court disciple. Right now, if your Heavenly Fragrance School wants to gain something in the exploration of the group of immortal tombs, the only way is to strengthen the overall construction of the sect according to what I said. If you really can't wait, then you can only rely on Royal Soldier sect. After all, renting is not as good as buying, and buying is not as good as selling. As long as you sell the sect, you can have everything." Seeing that Gao Tang was still tangled, Wang Lu sneered. "If you don't want to listen, then get lost. In any case, the advance payment will not be refunded." Upon hearing this, Gao Tang sighed and sat down. "Senior brother Wang Lu, please continue." Half a day later, Wang Lu's report ended. With a complicated look, Gao Tang put away the several opinions on Heavenly Fragrance School's exploration of the group of immortal tombs, and thanked Wang Lu. Before leaving, he reached into his bosom, took out a letter, and handed it to Wang Lu. This is what Senior Sister Zhou of Kunlun sect asked me to bring. She said that previously she sent more than 10 emails through the regular channel, but all of them fell into the sea. No matter what, she couldn't contact you. Therefore she asked me to give this to you when I have the chance. Wang Lu somewhat curiously took the letter. Previously he was busy sorting out the method, so he refused to accept any private messages. He thought that with his network of interpersonal relationships, no one would be in a hurry to find him. Unexpectedly, there was actually Zhou Mumu who was in a hurry to find him. Opening the letter, Zhou Mumu spoke concisely. A temporary meeting of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques will be held in the middle of next month. Qianghua, Xiang Liang and some idiot have promised to attend. As for you, it's up to you whether you want to come or not. Who is begging you? The last few words penetrated the back of the paper, and an impatient anger came from the ink. Chapter 440. Okay, let's analyze the situation. Let's assume that the real intention of this letter is that Zhou Mumu, out of her strong and uncontrollable love for me, lured me to go to Kunlun Immortal World using the gathering of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques as an excuse. Then, through poisoning, bewitching, confusing, and other methods, she lured me to have an improper relationship with her on the spiritual level, thus forcing me to maintain a close relationship with her for a long time. So, how should I deal with it? In the Misty Peak cafeteria, several disciples of Spirit Sword sect gathered together to discuss a major event. Senior brother Wang Lu, we know you very well. As the lead disciple of Lingjian School, every move of yours is of great importance. Therefore, even if our power is meager, we will do our best to give you advice. But, do you really think Senior Sister Zhou would send you a letter based on that reason? At the dining table, Wen Bao had a helpless look on his face. Beside him, the curious Lu Li was excitedly looking around, both of her eyes shining. Seeing her in high spirits, Wen Bao asked, Sister Lu Li, what do you think? Lu Li said, what about Sister Aya's new dish? I heard from Wang Lu that Sister Aya has invented a new dish, and the taste is surprising, so I specifically came to taste it. Wen Bao said, do you really take this reason seriously? There's only one reason why the new dish in the Misty Peak cafeteria is surprising, okay? Really? I'm curious, which reason is it? A clear voice came from behind Wen Bao, which made all the hair on his body stand up. The next moment, a petite but powerful figure appeared at the dining table. Aya carried a heavy round plate and put it on the table. On top of a soft yellow cake, there was a sword-shaped candle. The top of the candle was burning with a blazing flame, but it didn't damage the sword. First of all, I wish you a happy first birthday. Aya gently smiled. According to the custom of U9 region's people, Taoist Master King Pil is a new disciple. Today should be the first anniversary of you achieving King Pil, so this stone sword is my gift. Then in my opinion, Zhou Mumu's letter should be true. The fierce true yuan on the letter doesn't seem to be deliberately fake. Although I'm only good at identifying swordsmen, Zhou Mumu's temperament is as straightforward as a sword, so she shouldn't be faking it. At the other end of the table, Wang Lu sneered and said, or maybe the other party is deliberately using this to confuse me. Aya shrugged helplessly and turned to leave. I'll prepare drinks for you. Senior brother Wang Lu, in my opinion, perhaps Senior Sister Zhou wants to exchange pointers with you. The young man sitting next to Wen Bao was wearing a black and white robe. He was a bit older and had a Shudan aura around his body. Although he had not reached grand accomplishment, it showed that his foundation was deep. He was the inner court disciple who led Wang Lu to the small clear sky peak more than 10 years ago, Yu Yun. As far as I know, the rest of the chief disciples have often exchanged pointers with each other over the past year in order to verify their cultivation. Among them, there are 4 people who have won and lost to each other. In the case where Senior Sister Qianghua does not use her slaughter immortal sword, the disparity between them is almost the same. But if we want to truly confirm the ranking, we still need your participation. Wang Lu snorted. Believe me, after experiencing the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown, the 4 of them will not be interested in fighting with me. In a sense, they are, after all, people with self-respect. Then, perhaps someone else asked Senior Sister Zhou to contact you? After all, you refused everyone's letter before. Perhaps some people thought that it was because your relationship was not good. And Senior Sister Zhou has the best relationship with you, so she is most likely to contact you? Yu Xinyao tried to guess. But Wang Lu continued to deny it. The problem is that Zhou Mumu's relationship with everyone else is not good. They should have asked someone else but not Zhou Mumu. Wen Bao finally could not help but lament. Senior brother, this is not right, that is not right. We really can't keep up with you. Why did you call us here? Wang Lu lightly said, of course, I know the difference in IQ between you and me, so I called you here to rule out the wrong answer. Damn. Wen Bao suffered a major blow. Dispirited, he pinched a piece of cake and put it in his mouth. The next moment, damn. If the cake maker was not the Night King, whose power was comparable to that of a supreme, Wen Bao would have vomited it on the spot. And Wang Lu was eating the cake as if nothing had happened, and then he looked at the letter in front of him and fell into deep thought. Zhou Mumu's letter was very urgent, but Wang Lu thought that this matter could not be rushed because it was too strange. At the level of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, almost everything was important. The 5 of them could decide on a small matter by themselves, but if it was related to the meeting of the lead disciples, it must be through the sect's channel. In other words, this letter should not be directly sent by Zhou Mumu to him, but should be sent by Kunlun sect to Lingjian school. Because it came too unruly, Wang Lu had to doubt the real intention of this letter. Zhou Mumu hid it from the sect, and not only Zhou Mumu, but several other sects' lead disciples took the same action at the same time. There must be a reasonable reason. So let's go back to the original question. Do you think Zhou Mumu fell in love with me? Senior brother, I admit that senior sister Zhou does have enough reason to fall in love with you, but this possibility is too small. Wang Lu laughed in his heart. That was right. Although his relationship with Zhou Mumu was really good, even Wen Bao knew that it was almost impossible for Zhou Mumu to fall in love with him. And since it was not love, then the purpose of this letter. Then he could only start to consider the second scenario. If this letter was sent for some not so good reason, then, since you are curious, then let's go and take a look. In the kitchen, Aya's soft voice came, and then the girl, wearing a clean apron, walked out of the kitchen with a cup of clear drink. As she walked, she took off the apron and countless golden light spots gathered out of thin air and condensed outside her body. After a clear and crisp sound of metal, the girl changed into her usual military uniform. If you are worried about accidentally entering a dangerous place, I will accompany you. It just so happens that I have been idle on the mountain for too long, so I want to go down the mountain to have a look. Legend has it that Kunlun Mountain is the oldest immortal sect, so I am very interested in seeing it. With a supreme-level swordsman accompanying him, there was no place in 9 regions that he couldn't go. Wang Lu thought for a moment and said, since you want to go, it's not impossible for me to take some time to accompany you. 3 days later, Wang Lu and Aya appeared at the foot of the immortal mountain. Legend has it that Kunlun Mountain was the origin of the immortal path in 9 regions, and it was also the location of the most ancient sect in 9 regions. Standing in the immortal mountain, one could feel that the air was filled with a profound aura, which was the spiritual energy of Kunlun Mountain that only the cultivators of Kunlun Mountain could enjoy. At the foot of the mountain, Zhou Mumu had been waiting for a long time. Through the extremely fast frequency of footsteps, the girl's impatience could be clearly seen. You're really late, my dear lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect. After the obviously ironic voice, Zhou Mumu saw the petite girl next to Wang Lu and suddenly asked in surprise, hey, you actually brought someone with you? Although it's not clearly written in the letter, this kind of appointment should be done alone, right? As soon as her voice fell, Zhou Mumu exclaimed again, my God, a supreme expert? Even if she was the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques, when she saw a supreme-level expert in close proximity, Zhou Mumu would still involuntarily feel fear. This was an involuntary reaction due to the difference in level between cultivators. But you've really changed. You actually started to bring a bodyguard with you. Are you afraid that I'll harm you? Wang Lu said with a smile, Senior Sister Zhou, you misunderstood. Aya is not my bodyguard. With that, he put his arm around Aya's shoulder and, under the latter's surprised eyes, took her into his arms. She's my girlfriend. We've known each other for many years and have long developed feelings for each other. It's just that, because of the difference in age, nationality, stage and so on, there's no clear relationship between us. Recently, with the success of the King Pill, I realized that I must be honest with my feelings, so I began to associate with her. Don't look at her amazing strength, she's actually very clingy. When she heard that I was going to Kunlun Mountain, she kept pestering me to come with me. I couldn't dissuade her, so I had to agree. Wang Lu said and then smiled at Zhou Mumu. Senior sister, you're also a person who's experienced in emotional matters, so you should be able to understand my difficulties. You're the one who's experienced. Zhou Mumu was silent for a long time. Her expression was twisted, wanting to say something but hesitating. Wang Lu thoughtfully said, if you feel that there are too many things to say, you can try to smile. Well, since you insist on bringing an outsider, then do as you please. In any case, it shouldn't matter if it's just a Western continent person. Zhou Mumu shook her head, then stretched out her right hand and a blood-colored spear appeared in her hand. Do you remember this? Of course Wang Lu remembered. In fact, seeing a Ye's blood-marked divine spear really awakened a lot of memories. Is this the inheritance that you got after you became the mistress? You're the fucking mistress. The blood-colored divine spear mercilessly stabbed out, but Wang Lu successfully blocked it with the sword of Mount Kuan. However, after that spear, Wang Lu's face slightly changed. The feeling of this spear seems a bit familiar. Yes, a bit familiar, right? Zhou Mumu's face turned solemn as she put away the blood-marked divine spear. Because all of this is not over yet, the battle in the immortal dreamland is still going on. When I first saw this blood spear, I thought it was my reward, but soon I found out that it was just a key to guide me to a deeper place. Perhaps it's because you've been in seclusion for too long that the signs haven't appeared yet, but I believe it's only a matter of time. At least a few others have. We've all encountered the same situation. The story of the demon world is not over. While speaking, Qianghua faintly interrupted. Her eyes glanced over at Wang Lu and Aya, and then looked behind her. Zhan Zai and Xiang Liang were already there, each with the inheritance that they obtained from the immortal dreamland. Their complexions were somewhat heavy. Regarding the background story of the 5 blood spirits' crown, they all had their own fortuitous encounter at the end of the immortal dreamland. Since it was related to the immortals and demons, they had to be cautious, and all kinds of encounters in the past year forced them to take some action. After a long silence, Zhou Mumu took the first step and said, I think we may have to go to the demon world. Chapter 441. What did you say? Demon world? After hearing Zhou Mumu's great plan, Wang Lu's first reaction was to confirm that he had heard it correctly. Since he achieved the king pill because of the fusion of the 3 forces, there were many times when his control of his body was still sluggish. Therefore, although it sounded like the demon world, it could also be that she wanted to touch the shoulder, a kind of intimate behavior between a man and a woman. It could also be touching the sword, a kind of sharp weapon located between a man's legs, also an intimate behavior between a man and a woman. However, Zhou Mumu quickly repeated, of course it's the demon world. After confirming that he had heard it correctly, Wang Lu could only doubt Zhou Mumu's intelligence. Senior Sister Zhou, let me ask you, if we draw a map for 9 regions, can each map be colored with 4 colors so that the countries with common borders are colored with different colors? What? Zhou Mumu looked confused. When Wang Lu repeated the question, the several lead disciples had different reactions. Xiang Liang turned a deaf ear to it, obviously not interested in it. Zhou Mumu thought for a while and then shrugged and said, of course it can. Qianghua took a deep look at Wang Lu. She had already guessed the difficulty, so she didn't delve into it. Only Zhan Zai fell into deep contemplation. His face was sometimes relaxed and sometimes heavy. Finally, he simply lay on the ground and drew thousands of calculation talismans with his thunder palm. Each talisman could be calculated many times in an instant. However, even though Zhan Zai had a lot of calculation talismans around him, he still couldn't solve it. In the end, his face turned pale and he sweated profusely. If it weren't for Qianghua's timely immortal dew sword, perhaps Zhan Zai would have a heart failure. What a terrible soul confusion technique. Wang Lu, where did you learn it? There was both fear and admiration on Zhan Zai's face. Scholar Gu Deli of Yingji country's ancient village taught me. Wang Lu frowned for a while. In short, it seems that the 4 of you are the real deal. We won't joke about this kind of thing. Zhou Mumu said, you don't feel it because you haven't been summoned by the demon realm, but the few of us have suffered a lot. As Zhou Mumu spoke, she stretched out her right hand in front of Wang Lu. On her white wrist, there was a faint line of blood. When Wang Lu got closer, he could feel a surge of bloodline power contained within. It's like it's alive. I can often hear it whispering in my ears. Although it hasn't caused any substantial effects, it's like a thorn in my back. Wang Lu nodded. This is the original sin of being a mistress. You're the mistress. Zhou Mumu raised her diamond ring and attacked. Wang Lu laughed and dodged to the side. He then asked the others, is your situation the same? The same. Xiang Liang coldly replied, there is a cluster of angry flame in my jade mansion. Although there is no side effect, it cannot be expelled. Qianghua said, our situation is similar. Ever since that battle, we can sometimes feel the summons from the demon realm. Although there's no direct effect at present, I don't think it will always be gentle. Wang Lu sneered. You've killed hundreds of millions of people, do you still expect them to be gentle? After a pause he asked, whether it's the blood spear or the angry flame, they're all traces left in the immortal dreamland. Haven't you considered looking for the answer in the immortal dreamland? I have, but there's no harvest. Qianghua said, this year Xinjing sect team has a total of 13 teams in the group of immortal tombs. I've joined all of them, but there's no clue at all. I'm afraid that the one we experienced is relatively independent, and the other immortal dreamlands have nothing to do with it. Wang Lu also said, even if it's relatively independent as a part of the 36 chains, at least there should be a clue in the last chain. Hasn't your Xinjing sect developed the last chain this year? Yes, but it's extremely difficult and the progress is very slow. Isn't Lingjian school the same? Wang Lu said, recently, I have been so busy sorting out the king pill that I didn't even have time to check the more than 10 love letters sent by senior sister Zhou. How could I have the leisure to care about the tombs of immortals? In short, I basically understand the current situation. You guys must be cautious when it comes to the demon world. You guys don't want to make it known to the public, so you guys convened a private meeting to discuss countermeasures. Up to this point things still make sense, but isn't the strategy to go to the demon world too hasty? Zhou Mumu said, of course not now, and even if we want to go we can't. After the Great Immortal and Demon War, the entrance to the demon world was completely destroyed by Great Ancestor Dishing. Now, the connection between the two worlds is limited to a few secret paths, which is very inconvenient. Moreover, with just a few of us newly promoted King Pill, going deep into the demon realm alone is basically seeking our own death. I'm just proposing a direction, the specific plan needs to be discussed carefully before it can be determined. Wang Lu smiled and said, that's why you called me here? You want me to help you plan a strategy to conquer the devil realm? I think why are you so obsessed with the demon realm? If you want to break through the current predicament, the most logical clue should be to start from the 36 chains. We don't even know what the purpose of the legacy left behind in that chain is. Going to the demon realm rashly would only yield half the result with twice the effort. Cultivators below the Yuanying stage cannot enter the last chain of the 36 chains. Qianghua explained, at least the 36 chains of immortal dreamlands developed by our 4 sects are the same. This chain is a long-term strategy. With our situation, it would be difficult for us to directly intervene in the next 10 years, so we can only seek a breakthrough in other directions. That's still not right. Wang Lu said, since when did you attach so much importance to the cultivation-based requirements of the immortal dreamlands? The last chain clearly requires cultivators below the King Pill stage to participate, but didn't you all suppress your cultivation base and join with the peak Shudan stage? Since you all have a secret method to disguise as a Shudan, naturally you should also have a way to disguise as a Yuanying. With the strength of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, ordinary low-level Yuanying stage cultivators may not be our opponents. The difficulty of the last chain is astonishing. Qianghua emphasized, moreover, it is different from the previous immortal dreamlands that we experienced. This chain is very cruel, and the death of cultivators is really irreversible. So far, Xinjing sect team has lost 3 Yuanying stage elders in this chain, and none of them is an ordinary low-level Yuanying stage. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu's eyebrows slightly trembled. This was really a heavy loss. In the previous struggle for the 5 Blood Spirit Crown, Xinjing sect team seemed to have suffered a heavy loss, but later they found out that even if the participants' souls were scattered in the immortal dreamland, they would be resurrected in the vast sea of stars by the immortal dreamland, and there was no actual loss. In fact, before the last chain of the 36 chains, the Wanxian League had been exploring the group of immortal tombs for more than a year, and there were not many actual casualties. Zhou Mumu sighed. The progress of Kunlun sect is also not smooth. We lost one person, a high-level Yuanying stage cultivator. In order to protect 2 junior brothers, he died in the immortal dreamland. Although Xiang Liang and Zhan Zai didn't speak, it could be assumed that their situation was similar. No wonder I haven't heard about the situation of the Heavenly Sword Hall elders exploring the group of immortal tombs in the past month. It's so dangerous, I'm afraid they've simply put it aside. Thinking about the situation of his own sect, Wang Lu quickly made a judgment. Unlike those super sects that had as many Yuanying stage as dogs, even though the Lingjian school's prestige had gradually risen in the past 2 years, it ultimately could not offset the disadvantage of its sparse population. In the entire sect, there were only a few Yuanying stage elders which could be counted with 2 hands. Moreover, with the head of the sect leader as a guarantee, there was absolutely no elder who was in seclusion. Therefore, in the face of an immortal dreamland where even a Taoist master of Yuanying stage was in danger, it was impossible for the Lingjian school to be like other people and use their lives to fill the gap. After realizing that the strategy of this chain might take a long time, they were mostly waiting for Xingjing sect and the other sects to achieve results first, and then play their advantage. Well, although I still think that to find clues, the 36 chains is the first choice, but since you all think that this road is not going to work, then it's not impossible to explore from the direction of the demon world. When it comes to the understanding of the demon world, in addition to Xingjing sect, Kunlun sect is the first. Senior Sister Zhou gathered us here in order to facilitate the gathering of materials? Yes, the place of origin of Kunlun sect has the oldest library in 9 regions. Perhaps it's not as extensive as the 10,000 Arts sect, but when it comes to the secrets of the demon race, even Xingjing sect people don't know more than us. It's just that, there are too many records in the library of Kunlun sect. If we want to find the needed information from the vast sea of records, it's really beyond our power to rely on just 1 or 2 people. Not to mention that each of us has different situations, so it's best to search separately. Before she could continue, Wang Lu could not help but interrupt. Wait a minute, Senior Sister Zhou, do you mean to let us outsiders go deep into the place of origin of Kunlun sect, and even read the information in the internal library? When did your sect rules become so loose? Is Kunlun sect going to reform and open up? Zhou Mumu said, the sect rules have never said that outsiders are allowed to enter. But according to the rules of Kunlun sect, if the lead disciple thinks it's necessary, he or she can ignore some of the rules. Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. Your Kunlun sect's lead disciple actually has such a privilege? That's really good. Zhou Mumu curiously asked, isn't this the norm? The lead disciple is the successor of the sect, of course he or she should have the privilege. Why doesn't your Lingjian school have it? I feel like I'm implicated by someone. In short, I will take you to the place of origin. But before that, I need you to swear that you will never read the confidential information that has nothing to do with this operation, and you must not tell others about what you saw and heard today. Zhou Mumu's request was very reasonable. After the several people made their respective vows, Zhou Mumu looked at Aya, who came with Wang Lu. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something but hesitated. Aya smiled. I understand, you don't have to worry about me, I'll wait for you here. Wang Lu, how many days do you want? Wang Lu said, 5 days? Very well, if I don't see you in 5 days I'll go find you. While speaking, Aya looked up. Her green eyes penetrated the clouds and mist that lingered outside Kunlun sect all year round. Even in the face of the most ancient immortal cultivation sect in 9 regions, Aya still had no fear. Wang Lu laughed in spite of himself. Thank you for your concern. It's good to have a heroic spirit, but seriously, if you don't see me when the time comes, are you really going to kill your way to Kunlun sect? Aya lightly said, no, when the time comes, I'll visit you in the name of cooking exchange. I'll use peaceful means before using force. Cooking exchange? You're clearly provoking me first. Chapter 442. Tsk. Riding the primal chaos golden halo, Zhou Mumu completely ignored the clouds in front of her. Instead, she locked her eyes on Wang Lu, sizing him up and down. This kind of scrutinizing gaze from Taoist Master King Pil could not be withstood by ordinary people. Even if Zhou Mumu had no intention to hurt people, she could still make ordinary people feel as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Even if a cultivator was not at the shoot-on stage, he would not be able to withstand her gaze. Unfortunately, the person Zhou Mumu was sizing up was Wang Lu, the invulnerable Wang Lu who had the best defense at the same level. Seeing Zhou Mumu's gaze going back and forth endlessly, he clicked his tongue. Wang Lu was not polite. He directly rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms, and then posed all kinds of bodybuilding poses, which made Zhou Mumu stagger and almost fall from the diamond halo. You, Wang Lu snorted. Humph, are you blinded by the flash of my biceps? I'm being merciful, otherwise I would have blinded you with my pectoral muscles. Enough, your disgusting action is second only to that of the stellar fairy. Just now, my immortal heart almost collapsed. Wang Lu's eyes lit up. This means that there is a weak point in your cultivation. Do you need me to help you strengthen your special training? There's no need. I still want to be an upright person. When Zhou Mumu said this, she felt that the anger that she had raised with great difficulty had completely dissipated. Alas, at first I just wanted to ask you, what is the relationship between you and that she-woman? She seems to be deeply in love with you, but you two are not like ordinary cultivation companions. Wang Lu laughed. Of course not ordinary cultivation companions. I was her gigolo. This time, Zhou Mumu really lost her balance and fell directly from the diamond halo. She hurriedly regained her balance. They were walking in the mountain protecting array outside the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. According to the usual rules, not to mention a Taoist in Jindan stage, even a supreme-level cultivator could not fly freely without the permission of the owner of the mountain gate. Zhou Mumu had used her authority as the head disciple to lead the way. She also had to maintain her balance during the flight. If she was careless, she would fall. In the end, forget it, most people won't be able to understand your matters. However, I really envy you for having a supreme-level bodyguard. Zhou Mumu said, even if it's that person from Shengjing, it's impossible for him to have a perfected Lord Elder protecting him. Although the position of the lead disciple of the 5 uniques was pivotal, supreme-level cultivators were equally revered. Even in Xingjing sect, there were only a handful of supreme-level cultivators, and any one of them was a precious force that could not be ignored by the sect. Unless the sect encountered a major situation, even the sect master could not order them around. Therefore, when Zhou Mumu saw that Wang Lu could casually call over a supreme-level bodyguard, she was a little envious. Wang Lu laughed. It's easy to get a bodyguard. With senior sister Zhou's looks and aptitude, you can just find an old man at the level of a supreme and you'll have a bodyguard. Furthermore, when this old man passes away, you'll be able to inherit his inheritance. I'm afraid that you'll receive even more than you would as the chief disciple. Zhou Mumu decided not to talk to Wang Lu anymore. After an unknown amount of time, the group of people finally crossed the clouds and Kunlun Mountain appeared in front of them. Unlike the one mountain with 12 peaks in Lingjian School, Kunlun Mountain did not use clouds to hide its location, but simply used clouds to separate the space. The real location of Kunlun Mountain was a mystery that few people in 9 regions knew. If not for Zhou Mumu's leadership, the other 4 sects' lead disciples would not have the opportunity to appreciate the real scenery of Kunlun Mountain. As the oldest immortal cultivation sect in 9 regions, Kunlun Mountain scenery was mysterious. However, this time, Zhou Mumu led the 4 people directly through a winding path. Along the way, they didn't see anyone, nor did they see the various facilities in the Immortal Mountain. According to Zhou Mumu, her use of the lead disciple privilege this time was somewhat not in compliance with the rules. It was fine if they moved quietly, but if they moved with great fanfare, it might cause trouble. Especially in Kunlun Mountain, which was the most conservative place in 9 regions. If they caused trouble, it was likely to be big trouble. Their identity as the lead disciples of several sects would add fuel to the fire. So please keep a low profile. I'll take you directly to the place of origin from the path. Right now, the elders of the place of origin have something to do and are out. The elders who look after the place have a good relationship with me, so they will turn a blind eye. As long as you don't cause trouble, you'll be safe in the place of origin. In the entire Immortal Mountain, there are only a few people who can enter and exit the place of origin at will. Along the way, Zhou Mumu repeatedly exhorted them, especially in the ears of Wang Lu. Because among the group of people, only Wang Lu worried her the most. Qianghua had always done things properly. Although she was unhappy with her, she had to admit that Xiang Liang's obedience was amazing. If she gave him accurate orders, he would not make a mistake. As for Zhan Zai, if he really caused trouble, that would be good. Let the sect elders teach him a lesson. It would be best if he died. After walking along the secret path of Kunlun Mountain for a long time, they finally saw a lake full of infinite vitality. Thousands of kinds of spiritual energy gathered here. The lake reflected the thousands of years of history of 9 regions, which was dazzling. Qianghua appreciated the scenery of the lake with great interest and asked softly, "Is this the place of origin?" Zhou Mumu nodded and then called out to the 4 of them, "Follow closely, we have to go deep into the lake to enter the library. This process requires you to be calm, don't panic." However, the 4 lead disciples didn't need to be told. They each operated their own method, converged their power like a cocoon, and then followed Zhou Mumu's footsteps into the center of the lake. The leader, Zhou Mumu, silently chanted a spell to protect the group from the pressure of the lake. The lake water of the place of origin contained infinite power. If there was no correct spell to avoid the water, even Taoist Master King Pill would be swallowed up by it. The so-called not to enter and exit at will without permission was not just an empty sect rule. After experiencing all the caution along the way, the mentality of the several lead disciples could not help but adjust and become serious. After sinking into the lake water, they found that the lake water and the clouds outside Kunlun Mountain had the same wonderful effect. It was a means of separating space. The real library was not necessarily deep at the bottom of the lake. It was likely to be an independent immortal's cave. The lake water rippled and the light and shadow swayed. Unknowingly, the clear lake water was no longer in front of them, but a spacious path. In front of them stood a magnificent hall, which was made of white jade. It seemed to be carved out of a pure white jade mountain. The hall was pure and spotless and the water vapor was dense. In front of the door, a white stone road extended to their feet. There was only a gray rock as tall as a person standing next to the door. The surface of the rock was covered with moss and fungi. The style was slightly abrupt, but it added a bit of natural interest to this solemn place. Zhou took the lead and walked quickly to the door of the hall. Suddenly she stopped and nodded to the gray rock. Then, in the surprised eyes of Wang Lu and the others, the rock trembled slightly as if it was also nodding. Sun Wukong? Wang Lu took a step back with a vigilant look on his face. Zhou snorted, turned around without hesitation, and hit them with the Vajra ring. Rude guy, you deserve a beating. However, the others were also quite curious about this moving rock. Seeing that she couldn't beat them, Zhou explained. This is the South Pole Immortal Wang who is in charge of the library of Kunlun Mountain. Seeing the awkward silence, Zhou had to further explain, the South Pole Immortal Wang went into a dormant state 3 years ago. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have any reaction to the outside world. Because I brought an outsider this time, I need to explain to him. Anyway, don't think that this is really a rock. Wang Lu was stunned for a while and then he looked hard at the rock. This rock is really the South Pole Immortal Wang. The legendary turtle that has lived for 3,600 years. Turtle your ass. Even if he doesn't respond, he can still hear you. Zhou was so anxious that her Vajra ring hit Wang Lu without hesitation, causing him to stagger. From now on, shut up. Although Wang Lu saw that the rock didn't respond, he didn't say anything more. The South Pole Immortal Wang, the longest-lived cultivator in 9 regions, was now a joke in the eyes of many people. Because the South Pole Immortal Wang was famous for his extreme cultivation, extreme survival, and extremely bad at fighting. In theory, he was in the Unity stage, but his actual ability was probably not as good as some Taoist master of Yuanying stage. All his mind was devoted to prolonging his lifespan, nothing else. This was also the reason why he was nicknamed Gue Suisho. However, Wang Lu didn't think so simply. Although his long life consumed his strength as a cultivator, it also allowed him to see too many ups and downs, the vicissitudes of life. In his view, the leaders of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League were all the juniors of the juniors. Moreover, there was another key problem. In the past 3,600 years, the 9 regions had experienced many shocks. Especially the sudden Great War of Immortals and Demons 2,000 years ago, also known as the Second Great War of Immortals and Demons, which plunged the 9 regions into a sea of fire and plunged the people into misery and suffering. At that time, people thought that Great Ancestor Dishing had completely eliminated the threat of the demon race in the First Great War of Immortals and Demons. However, they didn't expect that the demon race actually had a considerable power in 9 regions. Once it broke out, it was simply unstoppable. In that Great War of Immortals and Demons, the people of 9 regions won more or less by luck. No one knew how many immortal cultivation sects were destroyed, and the situation was comparable to the Age of Chaos. And the South Pole Immortal Wang survived from that era. With a bit of caution, Wang Lu and the others walked past the stone-like Immortal Wang. It was just that, not knowing if it was an illusion, Wang Lu always felt that the rock seemed to be looking at him. If it was an ordinary person in the current delicate situation, most of them would ignore it. However, Wang Lu was a person who believed in details. Since he clearly felt that there was a problem, he could not easily let it go. He turned around, walked directly to the front of the rock and reached out to touch a clean place. Hey, what are you doing? Zhou voice suddenly seemed to become ethereal and distant, because a line of words suddenly appeared in Wang Lu's mind. On the 2nd floor, the 4432nd row, 233rd bookshelf, there may be something you need. Chapter 443. After the group of people entered the library of Kunlun sect, Zhou once again emphasized several requirements and then dispersed to look for books that might be useful. Kunlun sect was the oldest ancient sect in 9 regions. The so-called ancient sect was based on the ancient method. More than 10 years ago, Lingjian school showed off its ancient style in the Immortal Gathering. However, compared with Kunlun sect, it was far from being able to do so. This independent immortal mountain seemed to be immutable since ancient times. No matter how the outside world changed, it could not shake its persistence. All the ancient sects paid attention to chance. But what was chance? This question was difficult to explain in a few words. The specific situation was, in the library of Kunlun sect, the books were not scientifically organized, neither according to the year, nor according to the event or task, but randomly scattered everywhere. Thus, the 5 of them had no choice but to split up and wander around the huge library that had an unknown number of floors and bookshelves. Then, whichever book they chose would be their fated chance. If it was a normal person, they would definitely question this unreliable method. However, most of the lead disciples acquiesced in this method. As the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, each of them had luck that ordinary people could not match. If they were in the mortal world, they would be the kind of people who could forcibly open 10 times in a row without using any method. However, because their usual opponents were not ordinary people, their strong luck could not be reflected. However, if they believed in chance or not, most of them believed in it. Except for one person. It's really absurd and unbelievable. Zhang Zai's eyes widened in disbelief, and then he said angrily, "Is this the archive management of your Kunlun sect? Leave everything to fate? What a joke. Do you know how much waste this kind of unorganized archiving will cause? Do you know the historical significance of the information held by your Kunlun sect in the immortal cultivation world of the entire 9 regions? This kind of waste is a reckless waste of natural resources. Aren't you afraid of the lightning punishment from the heavenly tribulation?" Zhou was a bit dumbfounded by the accusation. She was stunned for a long time. Zhang Zai was furious. He pointed to the white jade library behind him and said, "Your Kunlun sect has always been an ancient sect. In some places you are conservative, such as not allowing cultivators with artificial spirit root to enter the sect, or the one-to-one teaching mode. But in terms of knowledge, you can't afford to be conservative. Your Kunlun sect monopolizes too much knowledge. If you sell it at a high price, I can accept it. But you keep it to yourself and recklessly waste it. You are committing a crime against the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions." Zhou was scolded and lost the first opportunity. However, as a golden core Taoist master, her immortal heart cultivation was very strong. Very quickly she stood firm and launched a sharp counterattack. The girl tilted her head slightly and sneered, "Idiot." Zhang Zai was about to go crazy from anger. Lightning flashed across half of his body, but the immortal heart of 10,000 motionless also suppressed his anger at this moment. This was not 10,000 Arts sect, but Kunlun Immortal Mountain, the hometown of Zhou. If they really fought, it would not end well. "Do you dare?" Zhou bluntly said, "If you want to court death, of course I will accompany you." Zhou bluntly said, "If you want to court death, of course I will accompany you." After setting the duel, the two blacklisted each other and then went deeper into the library in different directions. Although leaving it up to fate seemed rather absurd, everyone, including Zhang Zai, could faintly sense that something in the depths of the library was calling out to them. Perhaps that was their fate, or perhaps this was the mystical effect of Kunlun's oldest library in the land of origin. Of course, even so, Zhang Zai still believed that this kind of library management should be punished by the heavens. The second floor, 4432nd row, 233rd bookshelf. Wang Lu walked along the stairs on the edge of the hall for a long time. The long stairs seemed to be endless. On the second floor, Wang Lu was shocked, and then his heart strongly agreed with Zhang Zai. These idiots of Kunlun should really be punished by the heavens. The endless sea of bookshelves was fine, but the bookshelves were actually not numbered. Did he have to count the so-called 4432nd row, 233rd row one by one? Of course, as Taoist King Pil, his primordial spirit was powerful enough to scan tens of millions of units in an instant, so thousands of bookshelves was not a big deal. However, it still made people feel that these old antiques of Kunlun really deserved to be beaten. Before long, Wang Lu finally counted to 4432-233, and on the quaint bookshelf in front of him, there was indeed a heart-palpitating fluctuation. He casually pulled out a book, and the title alone made Wang Lu tremble. Zhongjing Diary. Could it be the divine Lord Zhongjing who once ruled 9 regions during the rise of Great Ancestor Dishing, but was replaced by Great Ancestor Dishing because of the failure in the Great War of Immortals and Demons? Divine Lord Zhongjing was the #1 person in the immortal cultivation world in 9 regions in the past. If he was not born at the same time as Great Ancestor Dishing, and if it was not during the Great War of Immortals and Demons, presumably he could have achieved a glorious career. Unfortunately, his lifelong foundation was swept away by the demon race, and then he was ousted from the position of the number one person in 9 regions by great ancestor Disheng. In his later years he lived in a remote corner and ended his legendary life in loneliness and resentment, dying with the cultivation base of Mahayana stage. Before that, many people believed that he actually had the qualification to ascend to immortality, which was how he got the title of Divine Lord. Then it was said that before Divine Lord Zhongjing died, he left a diary which recorded many secrets. It was just that the real Japanese version had long been lost, and most of the literary creations of later generations were passed down to the world. However, this was the origin of Kunlun Immortal Mountain, so it was impossible to collect a counterfeit version, right? Moreover, Kunlun Immortal Mountain was the sect where Divine Lord Zhongjing came from, so it was reasonable for him to leave behind his relics. Therefore, with strong curiosity, Wang Lu opened the diary. The diary was just a diary. Holding this ancient book that ran through thousands of years of history, Wang Lu did not feel the traces left by Divine Lord Zhongjing. Perhaps in his later years, he did not intend to leave too many traces of himself, or perhaps this was just a copy, and the real one had long been collected somewhere. But for Wang Lu, the content of the diary was the most important. A divine lord who had experienced the great war of immortals and demons had a far better understanding of the demon race than any outsider, even if the most criticized thing in Divine Lord Zhongjing's life was that he was not able to resist the demons. Wang Lu read the book very fast. With his king pill level primordial spirit, Wang Lu read the thick book twice in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Then a drop of cold sweat quietly fell. Sometimes, the price of knowing the truth would be far higher than expected. Wang Lu originally intended to learn some unknown secrets from the diary, such as the secret of the power of the demon race, but abandoning the demon race and triggering the great war of immortals and demons is regarded by many as the turning point in my life. But even if I could go back and start over, I would still make the same choice. Disheng has his own persistence, which allowed him to sweep the 9 regions in just 20 years and ascend to the immortal palace. I am not as good as Disheng, but in my life of cultivation, I also have my own persistence. This was the sentence at the end of the diary, which came without a head or tail. The content of the first half of the book was actually not too valuable. Basically, it was something that everyone knew. Only this sentence, abandoning the demon race and triggering the great war of immortals and demons? What the F***ck was he talking about? Abandoning the demon race? Oh, 9 regions cultivators? However, since the appearance of the demon race in 9 regions, there has been an irreconcilable enmity between the cultivators and the demon race. The two sides have been killing each other since they met. There has never been a peaceful exchange, let alone any covenant. So, how could there be abandonment? Was there any unknown secret hidden in the great war of immortals and demons? However, apart from this sentence, there was no other relevant content in the diary. This abrupt sentence was particularly eye-catching. Wang Lu read it twice and determined that the diary had either been processed by later generations, or the secret of the great war of immortals and demons was something that even the divine Lord Zhongjing did not dare to write too much about. Putting down the diary, Wang Lu pulled out the second book from the bookshelf. Biography of Great Ancestor Disheng. The biography of the Great Ancestor was not new, but this book was written by the Great Ancestor's personal guard. The book still contained the immortal aura of that Taoist master of peak deity stage. Most of the content was not strange, but there was a trace of strangeness in the writing. It was as if this personal guard had some sympathy for the demon race. With the temperament of Great Ancestor Disheng, it was hard to imagine that there would be a personal guard with such an unstable position. Could it be? Just as he thought of this, suddenly a voice rang in Wang Lu's ears. "Ah, my master, I finally meet you." This voice made Wang Lu frown because he clearly understood the meaning of this sentence, but the language used in this sentence was definitely not something he had heard before. In other words, Wang Lu touched the red jade pendant on his chest. It was obtained from a demon who had joined the Dixian camp after the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown. After a year of repeatedly studying it, he had not been able to understand its mystery, but now it was faintly heating up, as if indicating that a greater secret was about to be revealed. "Who are you?" Wang Lu opened his mouth, but his voice involuntarily became distorted, and the language was even more unheard of. "It's me, master, your loyal servant forever." As he spoke, a thick black book jumped out from the bookshelf. The pages were opened, and on one of the pages, a black face was excitedly and viciously talking. "I have waited for you for tens of thousands of years, and finally you have summoned me again. Master, I can't wait to teach those treacherous humans a lesson. Let's go slaughter a few human cities and then eat hundreds of human cultivators. I feel like I'm going to starve to death. Treachery, but Master, why do I feel that my eyes are dark and my body doesn't listen to me? Probably because you only have a mouth left, and it was sewn on the page as a specimen. That thick black book was the props used by the victors of the Great War of Immortals and Demons. However, in any case, hearing the clamor of this mouth, Wang Lu's heart was constantly in turmoil. Treacherous humans. Damn it, what happened in the Great War of Immortals and Demons? It seemed that it was really necessary to go to the demon realm, but where should the trip to the demon realm begin? Chapter 444. Wang Lu did not forget his purpose of coming to the library of Kunlun Immortal Mountain. They were here to find clues to enter the demon world, not to look for the ancient scandal of human beings. The world-shaking Great War of Immortals and Demons 10,000 years ago had faded with the long river of time for the people of 9 regions, but its influence was deep-rooted. The current Wuxia League was first formed because of the resistance against the demon race. The demon race was naturally tyrannical, and the distinction between immortals and demons was intolerable. These ideas had not been shaken so far. Today, the Wuxia League had developed to a high degree of liberalization of ideas and opinions. At the regular meeting held by the Wuxia League, even if some people called Hichu an idiot outside the meeting hall, it would not be taken seriously. However, the distinction between immortals and demons was the bottom line that could not be touched. You could express any opinion in public, but you could not support the demon race. But now it seemed that this deep-rooted iron rule seemed to be overturned. In the Great War of Immortals and Demons, the human race did not seem to be so innocent. Of course, things could not be concluded so quickly. Whether it was the diary of Chiang Kai-shek or the biography of the great ancestor, they were just minor details. And what that demon's mouth said was just a one-sided statement, which could not be completely believed. However, the development of the whole thing had begun to go beyond the control of Wang Lu. No matter how dazzling the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect was, in the face of such a topic like the war between immortals and demons, it still seemed that his words carried little weight. Moreover, Wang Lu really didn't want to wade into this pool of muddy water. He himself was a human race, so why bother to speak for the demon race? While he was thinking about it, he heard the incessant noise of that demon. Master, all these years in order to wait for you, I have been sleeping. Now that I wake up, I feel so hungry. Can you give me 2 pieces of human meat first? Otherwise your loyal servant will starve to death. Wang Lu glanced at the mouth that had been made into a specimen and could not help but laugh. In this case, even if he really found it human meat, what would it use to digest it? Or rather, what was this thing that could still speak with only its mouth? Moreover, why would it inexplicably recognize him as its master? Thinking of this, Wang Lu reached out his hand and touched the red jade pendant. Could it be that the red jade given to him by that demon had the effect of disguising himself as a demon? That should be the case, including the fact that he suddenly learned the language of the demon race. It might also be the work of the pendant. If that was the case, it seemed that he had no choice but to go to the demon world. Didn't he leave this tool behind so that he, a human, could openly enter the demon world without attracting attention? However, the way to enter the demon realm was still a problem. Wang Lu thought about it and decided to try to get some clues from this mouth. Next, I'm going to launch the cruelest revenge against the humans. Haha, I've been waiting for this for tens of thousands of years. Master, how do you plan to take revenge on the humans? Wang Lu thought for a moment before replying with a serious expression. First, we have to kill. We have to unleash a large-scale massacre as quickly as possible. We have to annihilate all of the human cultivators in the Kingdom of the 9 States, as well as all living beings on their side. Because for a race there was nothing more terrifying than extinction. There may be brave individuals who don't fear death, who can resist torture, and who can go against the instincts of all living beings. However, when it comes to a race there will be no such exceptions. Taking revenge on the humans and annihilating them is the most efficient choice. That's right, kill them all. Make sure that no human aura remains in every corner of this world. The mouth on the page became excited and roared incessantly, causing the thick black book to tremble uncontrollably. The threads sewn around the mouth also began to loosen. Wang Lu continued, however, this is not enough. Because taking revenge on the humans has to be done on 2 levels. One is to attack the humans and the other is to please oneself. Simply killing is not enough to vent the anger that has accumulated for tens of thousands of years. Thus, when the humans are on the brink of extinction, we have to stop as soon as possible. because the show is just about to begin. Oh, it sounds like Master has some amazing plan? It can't be said to be amazing because what I want to do is very simple. I want to raise the remaining humans like livestock and use them as ingredients for my race. Whether it's slaughtering, devouring, or torturing them, it's all up to my heart's desire. We will treat humans the same way humans treat pigs and dogs. Humans are born with intelligence far above pigs and dogs, so if they are slaughtered and abused like livestock, the pain they suffer will be 100 times greater. However, this is not enough because too long of oppression will completely reduce humans to the level of livestock. That will cause us to lose a lot of joy. Thus, we need to leave a seed of hope for the humans. In the beginning, the humans will definitely not be willing to be oppressed by our race, and resistance will continuously appear in the race. We have to pretend that we don't know anything and allow them to develop and grow, even taking the initiative to nurture them. When they think that they have grasped hope, we will use thunderous methods to uproot them and let them feel true despair. If we do this over and over again, our pleasure will be endless, and our revenge against the humans will never change. Oh my God, as expected of the great and supreme Master. Just listening to your plan is enough to satisfy me, and my hunger has also vanished. When are we going to do it? Wang Lu said, of course the sooner the better, but at present I don't have enough troops in my hands, and the human race of the Kingdom of 9 States is at its peak. I need to transfer more manpower from the demon realm, but the passage between the two worlds has been cut off by the humans. Before he finished speaking, the demon shouted, what's wrong with that? Let's find the flash race. They are best at opening up passages. As long as we can lock the position of the Kingdom of 9 States and open up a passage between the two worlds, it will take at most 10 years. I vaguely remember that 2,000 years ago, there was a flash race who opened up the passage. At that time I sensed the aura of the demon realm. Resuscitation for a moment, but unfortunately, it was quickly suppressed and I couldn't respond in time. What a pity. It turned out that there was a flash race in the demon realm that could connect the two worlds. It made great ancestor Dishing's magnificent feat of cutting the passage between the two worlds disappear. However, it seemed that the premise was that the flash race must be able to lock the position of the 9 regions in the demon realm, which was presumably not easy. Otherwise, after the first great war of immortals and demons, the 9 regions experienced the Age of Chaos, which was the weakest time. However, the demon race didn't take advantage of this opportunity to lock the position of the 9 regions. But you and I are in the Kingdom of 9 States, how can we contact the flash race of the demon realm and provide them with the location information? The mouth on the page laughed loudly, Master, how could you forget me? The voice of the howling race can pass through the 3 realms. As long as I eat and drink enough, getting in touch with the demon realm is just a matter of minutes. No wonder you were sealed on the page. But it seems that there is a way to go to the demon realm. Let this mouth roar and go to the demon realm to find a flash race person to pick them up. Then, the 5 of them disguised as the natives of the demon race and went to the demon realm. Although it seemed that there were still many things that were worth discussing, there was finally a way. The next step was how to put it into practice. Just as he was thinking this, Wang Lu suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if a sharp gaze had swept past him. His primordial spirit was full now, so his senses were especially sharp. He immediately put away the book and turned around. Behind him, 3 white figures gently descended from a higher flight of stairs. The 3 of them were dressed in white clothes and looked ethereal and otherworldly, as if they were celestial maidens who had descended from the heavens in the legends. However, Wang Lu was sure that the celestial maidens in almost all the legends weren't as fierce as this. Who are you? How dare you trespass on the Kunlun Immortal Mountain's forbidden ground of origin? The female in the lead had a head of beautiful black hair tied up high in a bun, and a pair of slender and sharp eyes. There was a beauty mole on the side of her lips, but it wasn't the slightest bit alluring. Instead, it was like a cold glint flashing by the edge of a sword. Wang Lu looked at her and smiled faintly. Senior sister from the Kunlun Immortal Mountain? I'm the top disciple of the Lingzhen school. When encountering strangers in other people's territory, it was basic etiquette to introduce oneself. Right now, Wang Lu had too many things to think about, so he didn't want to complicate matters. However, when she heard Wang Lu call himself the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, that woman's willowy eyebrows raised and unexpectedly became angry. I don't care whose lead disciple you are. Trespassing into the forbidden area of Kunlun Immortal Mountain is an unforgivable crime. I'm going to take you to the sect elders for trial. While speaking, a cyan flying sword drilled out from her palm. For a moment, the sword chi was awe-inspiring, and the murderous intent filled the air. Wang Lu really couldn't understand this. However, before he could say anything, he heard Zhou Mumu rushing from the first floor. "Don't do it. This is all a misunderstanding." Zhou Mumu came very fast. Before her voice fell, she had already flashed in front of the several people. With a hurried look, the girl said to the three women in white, "Senior sister, you misunderstood. This is the lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect, Wang Lu. He's my guest, not a suspicious person." What a joke. That woman with the beauty mark didn't buy it at all. Her eyes coldly examined Zhou Mumu, and the corner of her mouth raised into a mocking smile. "So what if you invited him? Who do you think you are? Do you think you're the sect leader of Kunlun sect? A mere lead disciple who has just mastered the king pill? You might die prematurely. I advise you to be a bit more honest." Upon hearing this, Zhou Mumu was stunned for a moment. Then her face turned cold and her eyes turned stern. She had never been the type to compromise. Previously, she was very polite to her several senior sisters, but since the other party didn't give her face, "You don't need to worry about my future. Even if one day I really encounter misfortune, before that, I'm the dignified lead disciple of Kunlun sect, enjoying privileges according to the sect rules. And you Ziqing, if you're not convinced or envious, you can try to take away my lead disciple position. As long as you can do it, I won't say anything." The lead disciple position obviously meant a lot to Yu Ziqing, who had the beauty mark. Upon hearing Zhou Mumu mentioning it, she immediately became angry. "So what if you have the privilege of being the lead disciple? The three of us are your senior sisters. According to the sect rules, we have the right to supervise your every move. We suspect that you're colluding with bandits and betraying the interests of the sect. Hey, don't try to deny it. Just now, we clearly heard you speak in the demon language." While speaking, Yu Ziqing actually made a move. Her flying sword bypassed Zhou Mumu and went straight for Wang Lu. She wanted to act first and report later. Zhou Mumu was anxious. No matter what Yu Ziqing's character and temperament were, her cultivation base at the peak of the king pill was solid. Her strength was above her own. Moreover, the three of them always made a move together. Sure enough, beside Yu Ziqing, Yao Nie and Ning Mao, the two senior sisters, also took out their magic weapons. One entangled Zhou Mumu, and the other cooperated with Yu Ziqing to suppress Wang Lu. The three of them had cultivated far longer than the lead disciples of the five uniques, and their strength was also much higher. With the two of them working together, they should have a 90% chance of winning. Huh? The next moment, Wang Lu sneered. A khaki sword light enveloped him, firmly stabilizing him inside. Yu Ziqing and Ning Mao's flying swords collided with the sword light, and were actually repelled. Inside the sword light, Wang Lu sneered, "Senior sister Zhou, you're too polite. Not only did you entertain me, but you even specially brought 3 beasts for me to train. I know you're straightforward, so it would be impolite for me to refuse." Chapter 445. Alas, sure enough, I shouldn't have called this guy. On the second floor of the library in the place of origin, Zhou Mumu helplessly leaned against a bookshelf made of jade, which was integrated with the main hall, watching the battle in front of her become more and more intense. Wang Lu, this guy really couldn't be taken lightly. If he was given a little chance, he would immediately start to cause trouble. Running to other people's place of origin to fight, completely disregarding the master's face and scrupulous. This kind of thing could only be done by Wang Lu. If it was some idiot, he would not do it so arbitrarily. However, from another point of view, if she stood in the same position, she would most likely not be able to help herself. Yu Ziqing and the other two were too much. Their arrogant posture and provocative words were all to provoke a dispute. However, Wang Lu was someone who would rather die than suffer a loss. He should be thankful that he didn't find trouble with others, but now he was actually bullied by others. The reason why Yu Ziqing and the other two chose to make their move at this time was not as simple and impulsive as it seemed. First of all, regarding the issue of Wang Lu using the demon race language, Yu Ziqing and the other two were most likely not lying. Wang Lu had always been unpredictable. Even if he said that his relationship with the demon race was not shallow, it would not be surprising. Moreover, this time he came to the library to find clues about the demon world. He must have found something on the second floor, but unfortunately he was seen by Yu Ziqing and the other two. The struggle between the immortals and demons was of great importance. As long as they held on to this point, they would have a reason to make their move. Moreover, the three of them were all at the peak of King Pill, and each of them cultivated the superior immortal method of Kunlun sect. Their strength was quite powerful, not below the lead disciples of the five uniques. After all, at this time, Qianghua, who had the highest cultivation base, was only low-level King Pill, which was 2 or 3 levels lower than Yu Ziqing and the other two. In theory, as long as the Kill Immortal sword didn't come out, Qianghua might not be able to gain any advantage. Yu Ziqing and the other two were naturally well aware of this, so they boldly provoked Wang Lu. Not to mention that Wang Lu, the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, was famous for being good at defense and bad at offense. As long as Yu Ziqing paid a little attention to her sword and didn't be counterattacked by the nameless sword, at least she would be in an invincible position. However, this was only the wishful thinking of Yu Ziqing and the others. Without truly fighting with the chief disciples of the five absolutes, one would not understand the weight and value of the title. It was true that Yu Ziqing, Ning Mao, and Yao Nie all possessed astonishing strength and were famous for their fighting prowess. Normally they would win more than they lost when they fought with him. However, it would be too stupid to use Zhou Mumu's strength to measure the other four families. It would be too stupid to use the Zhou Mumu from before the battle for the five blood spirits crown to measure her current strength. Sigh, this is really, thinking about what would happen next. Zhou Mumu shook her head helplessly. It's too late to regret now. Senior apprentice sister Yao Nie sneered. Then, with a shake of her sword, Zhou Mumu was forced back half a step. Just wait to be punished by the sect elders. Zhou Mumu shrugged, indicating that she understood senior sister's weird logic. Provoking first, then fighting later. How stupid are the sect elders to not punish the three of you but punish me instead? Oh, that's right, behind these three people, there was indeed a Kunlun sect elder supporting them. Their department in Kunlun Immortal Mountain had always believed that force was above everything else. At the same time, they also believed in the supremacy of Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Many times, their logic was somewhat similar to that of the barbarians of Royal Soldier sect. For them, reason was not important, winning was important. If they won, even if they were unreasonable, they would still be reasonable. If they couldn't win, they would still be unreasonable. This time, they seized the opportunity of Wang Lu speaking the demon race language to start the fight. As long as they could win, there would be a way to deal with the aftermath. The problem is, do you think you can win by yourself? Clang. A deafening sound rang out, followed by a strong gust of wind ripple, which set off countless circles of ripples in the White Jade Palace. Every bookshelf here was protected by Kunlun Immortal Method, so any external force could not damage it. Otherwise, no one would dare to fight with sword in this White Jade Palace. A slight damage to 1 or 2 pages would be a loss to the history of the entire 9 regions. After the loud sound came Yu Ziqing's somewhat inconceivable shout. What kind of sword technique is this? At the same time, Ning Yen said in astonishment, I can't see any flaw at all. How could a low-rank King Pill sword technique not have any flaw? His King Pill's magical power is still unstable, so there must be a stagnation in the operation of his method, so his sword technique must have a flaw. Junior sister, I'll attack again, you take the opportunity to see it carefully. While speaking, Yu Ziqing stabilized her mind and once again released her flying sword to stab Wang Lu. However, the latter just lightly drew an arc with the sword of Mount Kuan, which was able to block the full power strike of the King Pill. Moreover, the rebound force from the sword shattered Yu Ziqing's flying sword. Yu Ziqing felt a slight pain in her heart. Although the flying sword was just a consumable, it was still shattered by the sword, and the magical power backlash still made her feel quite painful. Damn it! What kind of sword technique was this? How could a low-rank King Pill guard be so impregnable? Coupled with this sword technique, she had already sent out 3 flying swords in a row, but not only could they not penetrate the opponent's sword defense, they could not even make the opponent reveal a flaw. Even if Wang Lu had always been known for his defense, this was too outrageous. Ning Yen, are you done? On the side, Ning Yen shook her head and then released a flying sword to join the fight. It's not enough to just watch. Just now, his sword technique was smooth and flawless, without any flaw. I have to try it myself. Yu Ziqing frowned and took a step back. Although she intended to provoke the opponent this time, she disdained to bully a low-rank King Pill. Moreover, just now it could be seen that although Wang Lu's defense was amazing, he had no offensive ability. Thus, even if junior sister Ning Yen joined the fight, at least he would still be in an invincible position. And just at this time she suddenly heard Ning Yen exclaim, "Got it?" It turned out that the moment Ning Yen joined the fight, a huge flaw suddenly appeared in Wang Lu's smooth and flawless non-phase sword defense. The front was completely empty, as if it was tempting her to attack. Not to mention Ning Yen, who was the best at analyzing weaknesses, even Yu Ziqing could see that the opportunity had come. Wang Lu's king pill was really not stable and there was still a bit of sluggishness in it. It was not obvious in 2 or 3 moves, but once the fight dragged on, it would immediately be exposed. Lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect? Lie down for me. Yu Ziqing suppressed the urge to launch a joint attack and gave the opportunity to her junior sister. And Ning Yin did not let her down. The flying sword suddenly became brighter in the air, and the sword body turned from virtual to real. From the consumable sword chi condensed into the ancient wind spirit sword that Ning Yin was best at using. This sword momentum was swift and fierce, which had reached the peak of King Pill level. Even if Wang Lu's sword intent was perfect, it would still be difficult for him to deal with it, not to mention his current chaotic sword momentum. However, the next moment, a gray sword chi flashed across Yu Ziqing's line of sight. The woman only saw a blur in front of her, and then she heard her junior sister's painful groan behind her. Turning around subconsciously, an unbelievable scene appeared in front of his eyes. Junior sister Ning Mao's shoulder had a bloody hole. Her entire body's transcendence energy had been scattered, and she fell to the ground in pain. The sword that she had been so confident in had also deviated from her trajectory due to the sudden injury. What the hell was that? Who was the one who released that gray sword chi? In shock, Yu Ziqing looked at Zhou Mumu, who was watching from a distance, and saw that the girl was also shocked. She looked at Wang Lu as if she had seen a ghost. It seemed that the gray sword chi was not released by Zhou Mumu. Then, don't look, it was me. I helped you open another hole in your body so that you can better adapt to the work in the future. No need to thank me, this is what I should do. As Wang Lu spoke, he slowly retracted the sword fingers on his right hand. Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword chi, success in the first battle. Ever since the completion of King Pill, Wang Lu already had the ability to control both at the same time. The heart demon that once occupied his heart had also been cleverly dealt with. But it did not mean that Wang Lu could attack and defend at the same time, and at the same time he had the offensive and defensive abilities that far exceeded his level. His condensed King Pill indeed had the advantages of both. However, to bring out the strength of King Pill, he needed the corresponding method. However, he didn't have a set of method that could adapt to this new King Pill. Therefore, in the actual combat he could only use non-phase sword and Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword in turn, and there was still a certain gap between the attack and defense. However, as long as he was good at seizing the opportunity, it was enough. With the low-level King Pill, piercing the body of a peak King Pill with a bare hand sounded simple. In the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, there were not many people who could do it. However, the really amazing thing about this sword was, you can actually attack freely? Zhou Mumu still felt that it was unbelievable. Humph, sure enough, you're colluding with the demon race. Wang Lu's oath against the demon race had long been widely spread along with his reputation as the lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect. But now, he actually ignored the entanglement of the heart demon and used an extremely fierce piercing body sword chi. Obviously, the problem of the heart demon was no longer a problem. And in this world, except for the demon race, who else could easily solve the heart demon of a cultivator? At this moment, Yu Ziqing really confirmed her judgment. If the previous demon race was just an excuse, then this time, it was the beginning of her complete killing intent. The next moment, her usual flying sword shot out. However, it was no longer the original Lu sword that was mainly used for probing, but the spirit sword Moonlight that was full of the killing intent of this peak King Pill. Ning Mao, who was injured on the ground, reached out her hand to touch the wound, forcibly suppressed the injury with immortal method, and then the spirit sword Ancient Wine shot out again. At the same time, Yao Nye, who was responsible for guarding Zhou Mumu, also dropped her. Her spirit sword Scorching Sun drilled out from her palm and attacked Wang Lu. The 3 peak King Pill cultivators simultaneously made their move. Their astonishing sword momentum was connected with each other, stimulating each other, which made their power even higher. Wang Lu calmly withdrew his left hand and drew a perfect arc with the sword of Mount Kuan in his right hand. The earthy yellow spherical sword defense impressively lit up and violently collided with the 3 spirit swords. Humph! Wang Lu coldly humphed. The sword defense drawn by the sword of Mount Kuan finally could not withstand the heavy pressure of the flying swords of the 3 peak King Pill cultivators and loudly broke. However, at the same time, Yu Ziqing, Ning Mao, and Yao Nye also fell into a hard position. Just now, the short frontal confrontation with the non-phase sword defense actually made them feel weak. When Wang Lu's sword defense was broken, he took advantage of the situation to put away his non-phase sword. The next moment, when the 3 Kunlun cultivators fell into a weak position, his Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword chi broke out. Chapter 446. You guys. In the White Jade Palace, Wang Lu put away his sword of Mount Kuan and converged his murderous intent. Because all the enemies were already lying on the ground. The moment his non-phase sword defense was broken, he fully stimulated his primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi. Thousands of sword chi flew out like a rainstorm, catching Yu Ziqing and the others off guard. Although each of them had a protective magical treasure, they were still battered and exhausted. Their magical power collapsed and they vomited blood. Among them, Yu Ziqing, who was the closest, had 3 bloody holes on his body and was seriously injured. As the winner, Wang Lu did not put on an arrogant posture, but rather sighed with regret. I feel that, you Kunlun people still need to cultivate. You guys are very familiar with the sword cultivator's fighting style, but you guys are too young. Do you understand what I mean? Let me tell you, I've been through hundreds of battles and have seen a lot. Which lead disciple of the 5 uniques haven't I fought? You should know that the Night King of the Western Continent is much higher than you guys. Alas, I was talking and laughing with her. Cultivators, you still need to improve your actual combat level, do you know that? Alas, I'm also worried for you guys, really. You guys have a good thing, Kunlun is an ancient sect. They spare no effort to train their disciples, and their cultivation speed is even faster than Xingjing sect people. But in actual combat it's too simple and sometimes childish. Do you understand? Do you understand? I'm sorry, today I'm talking to you as the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques, not as an ordinary sword cultivator. But I've seen too much, so I need to tell you a little bit of my cultivation experience. These heartfelt words made Zhou Mumu, who was listening from the side, stunned. Although she didn't know why, she always felt that it was very powerful, as if she would die if she said it. However, in the ears of Yu Ziqing and the others, these heartfelt words were particularly unpleasant to the ear. Crooked path, don't think you can just let it go. This is Kunlun Immortal Mountain. 9 regions is the origin of the orthodox immortal path. It will never allow you, a crooked person who colludes with the demon race, to run rampant. Wang Lu laughed again. You guys don't always like to make a big accusation saying that I colluded with the devil race, criticizing me. You guys are too childish. However, before his voice fell, a voice once again came from the White Jade Palace. However, this time, the power of the voice was like the heavenly tribulation thunder, causing the immortal heart to sway and the Jade Mansion to shake. Who dares to collude with the demons in my Kunlun Immortal Mountain? As he spoke, a middle-aged cultivator stepped on thunderfire and descended from the sky. Before Wang Lu could see his face clearly, a ring of fire enveloped him. The moment this ring of fire appeared, the temperature of the entire White Jade Palace suddenly rose by a few degrees. The formation that maintained the operation of the palace for 10,000 years also trembled slightly, showing the astonishing strength of this person. The person who attacked was an elder of Kunlun. His cultivation level was at the peak of the soul formation stage, so his attack was earth-shattering. Seeing the blazing ring of fire that contained the supreme path, Wang Lu didn't move. He just shrugged slightly and had no intention to resist. King Pill fighting against a soul formation cultivator, this kind of stupid thing should be left to his master. Wang Lu was very self-aware. With his current cultivation level, there was no one in the King Pill stage that he couldn't beat. That was not to say whether he could beat them or not. However, in the Yuaning stage there was a difference in the opponent. Ordinary Yuaning stage cultivators could fight and even crush them, but elite Yuaning stage cultivators or middle-level Yuaning stage cultivators would have a great risk. High-level Yuaning stage cultivators, even if they were just loose cultivators, were just courting death. Not to mention soul formation cultivators. What's more, why did he need to make a move himself? Martial uncle? Seeing that even the elder had personally made a move, how could Zhou Mumu sit still? She took a step forward and placed the primal chaos diamond ring on top of Wang Lu's head. The soul formation level ring of fire circled in the air and then flew back. Zhou Mumu, what are you doing? The Kunlun elder was furious. He roared angrily, his voice rolling. Zhou Mumu was neither servile nor overbearing. Reporting to Martial Uncle, this person is an honored guest that I personally invited. He is definitely not a person who colludes with demons. Martial Uncle, please investigate clearly. I heard him speak the demon language with my own ears. Are you going to protect him? What's so strange about the demon language? During the Great War of Immortals and Demons, most cultivators knew 1 or 2 words of the demon language. Great Ancestor Dishing was even an expert in the demon language. Could it be that he also colluded with the demon race? Sophistry. You have no respect for your elders. Even if you are the lead disciple of the sect, I can't allow you to be so presumptuous. I will ask you one last time, are you going to step aside or not? As he spoke, the Kunlun elder's hand ignited a raging fire again. It seemed that he really didn't put Mumu, the lead disciple, in his eyes. Mumu took a deep breath. Martial uncle, have you ever seen anyone in the Kunlun sect who is greedy for life and afraid of death? Even if you kill me today, I won't let you hurt my friend. Stubborn? Then the raging fire in Elder He's hand actually burned down, causing Wang Lu to be dumbfounded. What the hell is wrong with Kunlun sect? Was there still any unity within the sect? Forget about Yu Ziqing and the others, but this guy in front of me is an elder of the sect. How could he so easily and carelessly kill the lead disciple? Is Zhou Mumu the lead disciple or the public enemy of the sect? However, seeing that the spirit-severing true fire was falling down, Zhou Mumu actually didn't panic at all. Wang Lu couldn't help but be stunned. Zhou Mumu was indeed straightforward, but she wasn't a fool. She was so fearless, most likely. Sigh. Just at the moment when the true fire fell to the ground, an aged sigh reverberated in the palace. Following the sigh, the true fire in the sky actually extinguished involuntarily. Who is it? When the true fire was extinguished, the elder also suffered a backlash. His body swayed in the air for a while before he asked sternly. Sigh. The same sigh resounded again. The Kunlun elder's face turned pale, and his trembling became even more intense. It's Grand Elder? You're actually awake? Sigh, that little friend of Spirit Sword sect and the other children were invited by me. Don't make things difficult for them. What? Elder He was shocked and angry at the same time. But the demon race, what's the point of speaking a few words of demon race's language? Colluding with the demon race? I also know the demon race's language. During the Great War of Immortal and Demon, I was their translator. How can these monstrous geniuses be mentioned in the same breath as Grand Elder? Elder He still didn't let it go. I saw with my own eyes that he was talking with the remnant of Howling clan who was sealed here. His expression was very relaxed. I was the one who asked him to find that Howling clan. What? Elder He was finally speechless from shock. Grand Elder, you, take your 3 good disciples and leave. This is a quiet place. Later on, don't fight and kill here. After Grand Elder said that, halos suddenly appeared around Elder He's body, which tied him up. Then, with a twist of space, he was forcibly expelled out of the palace. Of course, Yu Ziqing and the others were also sent out. The whole process only took 2 or 3 sentences, but a peak deity stage elder of Kunlun sect was actually driven out without any resistance. Just now, that space lock could forcibly expel him. Naturally, it could also forcibly strangle him. People often said that South Pole Immortal Wang had 4,000 years of lifespan but no cultivation base. Now that he saw it, the rumor was not true. While he was thinking, that old voice suddenly rang in his mind. Alas, I'm old, so I'm muddle-headed. I actually forgot that before you guys, someone has already entered this palace, creating trouble for no reason at all. Wang Lu smiled but didn't comment. Previously, Yu Ziqing and the others had already fought with each other, but he didn't see South Pole Immortal Wang say anything. Now that he provoked a peak deity stage expert, he hurriedly woke up. To say that he was old and muddle-headed was too far-fetched. However, I really didn't misjudge you. South Pole Immortal Wang said, if it's you, perhaps you can really solve this mystery. Wang Lu frowned. What mystery? After reading those ancient books, you should have an idea in your heart. Indeed. This kind of shocking secret isn't something that a mere king pill like me can care about. Senior Immortal Wang, if you're curious, why don't you solve it yourself? I'm already old, I can't move. South Pole Immortal Wang said lightly, besides, I've guarded this library for thousands of years and used all my methods to awaken the roaring remains. Only you must be hiding some important clues. Of course, the other chief disciples are the same. Right now, they're experiencing their own fated chances. Wang Lu thought for a while. Their fated chances were also guided by you, right? South Pole Immortal Wang said, this library has been passed down from tens of thousands of years ago. There are more than 1 or 2 mysteries that need to be explored by fated people. Wang Lu nodded in understanding and asked again, forgive me for being rude, but since you've already discovered these secrets, why didn't you take any action? Alas, I've been a spectator for my whole life. In this life, I don't have the power to participate anymore. South Pole Immortal Wang didn't say much and his tone seemed flat. However, Wang Lu realized that South Pole Immortal Wang wasn't casually shirking responsibility. Behind his lifespan, which was far beyond that of ordinary people, was endless suffering and tragic price. However, although I can't personally participate, I can still give you a helping hand. The death aura in my Jade Mansion is more than life aura, so I can't pass on my power to you. Since I've lived in seclusion here, I've already used up all my magical treasures and spirit stones, and now I'm all alone. While speaking, Wang Lu saw a person staggering up the stairs. South Pole Immortal Wang, who was originally sitting like a rock at the door, was staggering over. From a close distance, it was completely a rock covered with moss and mushrooms, without even a trace of life aura. It was hard to imagine to what extent this 4,000 years old creature had evolved to. Here, this is my gift to you, South Pole Immortal Wang said and shook his rock-like body. A mushroom that grew between the cracks of the rock fell down. Wang Lu asked curiously, "This mushroom is?" "It's called Ada." South Pole Immortal Wang was full of emotions. "It has accompanied me for more than 300 years. I still remember how it looked when it was born. It was a wet rainy day." "Wait, don't say any more. You just need to tell me what this mushroom is used for." South Pole Immortal Wang said, "After eating it, you can become bigger." "Which part will become bigger?" Chapter 447. There were many strange people in Kunlun Immortal Sect. As the most powerful ancient sect in 9 regions, Kunlun Immortal Sect was one of the most mysterious places. The sect was hidden in the clouds, detached from 9 regions. The sect implemented an ancient method that had been passed down for more than 10,000 years. There was no lack of mysticism in it, and it often taught maverick disciples. Zhou Mumu was an anomaly, while Yu Ziqing and the others were more in line with the general image of Kunlun people. However, today Wang Lu had his eyes opened and saw what was called a real strange thing. In other words, as long as I eat this mushroom, I can grow 100 times, 1,000,000 times in size, just like a giant? This is really shocking. Hehe, if you have the cultivation base of a supreme, you might be able to transform into a giant. But at that time my Ada would not be effective enough. Don't mention Ada. In short, although it can't make you transform into a giant, it might save your life at a critical moment. Then it would be impolite for me to refuse. If I have the opportunity to enter the demon world in the future and explore the truth of the past, I will definitely come back and tell it to you. South Pole Immortal Wang said, "The truth of the past is not important. What you have to explore is the road to the future." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was startled. He associated it with his own judgment of Dixian in the group of immortal tombs. Could it be that South Pole Immortal Wang knew something? However, no matter how Wang Lu asked, Immortal Wang refused to say anything more. He was completely silent and completely turned into a stone. Wang Lu sighed and patted the surface of the stone. His hand was only stained with moss. Seeing that South Pole Immortal Wang did not respond at all, as if he was dead, his mind turned and he began to grope on the surface of the stone. He was groping for more mushrooms. It could make people 1,000,000 times bigger, and at the same time, it could also make people abandon the enlarged body to save their lives at the critical moment. If this was not a divine tool, then what was it? And there were at least dozens of such divine tools on the surface of South Pole Immortal Wang. However, at this time, South Pole Immortal Wang himself, for some inexplicable reason, was silent. Wang Lu suddenly thought of a certain great sage who went to learn martial arts from a master when he was young. He was knocked on the head by his master 3 times, so he mustered his courage and went to his master's bed in the middle of the night. From then on he received all the teachings and could not be stopped. Most of the time, there was a tacit understanding between people. What's more, if he didn't take what was given to him by the heavens, he would be the one to blame. This was clearly an opportunity for him to become rich. How could he let it go? 1, 2, 3. Wang Lu calmly picked the mushrooms on the surface of the rock. To be on the safe side, he also wrapped his fingertips with non-phase sword chi. Fortunately, South Pole Immortal Wang didn't cast any restrictive spell. Thus, dozens of mushrooms were easily picked by Wang Lu. Phew, the mushroom-picking girl is done. Let's leave now, Zhou. Turning his head, he saw that Zhou Mumu had already disappeared without a trace. It seemed like the South Pole Immortal Wang didn't want Zhou Mumu to hear their conversation. But thinking about it, if she was still here, she would definitely stop him from picking the mushrooms. But since she wasn't here, Wang Lu simply took down the more suspicious books from the bookshelf. In a sense, Zhan Zai was right. These antiques were really a waste of God's gift in Kunlun Mountain. For thousands of years, no one had been able to figure out the secret behind them. Since that was the case, it was better to give them to him, the fated person. Of course, among the things that he took away, there was also a mouth that couldn't stop. Living things could not be put into a mustard seed bag. For the sake of confidentiality, Wang Lu kept it close to his body. Oh, I actually came into contact with Master's breath at such a close distance. I'm so happy that I almost fainted. Wang Lu sighed, tore off the page of the book and then put it under his feet. Master, I seem to smell human blood. At that time Wang Lu happened to step on the blood left by Ning Mao, Yu Ziqing and the others. Master is indeed worthy to be called a cruel revenge on human beings so quickly. Although I can't see it, I can taste the resentment in the blood. They must have suffered cruel torture before they died. I don't know if Master has enough minced meat for me to taste. I haven't tasted the flesh and blood of human cultivators for tens of thousands of years. Wang Lu thought for a while, took out a piece of sliced dog meat from his mustard seed bag, threw it on the ground and stepped on it. Oh, I haven't seen you for tens of thousands of years. The taste of human beings has become even more tender. I feel like my whole body is full of strength. Forget it. During the two great wars of immortals and demons, the demons had the upper hand in terms of power, but they were turned around by humans. It seemed like there was a reason. After I unseal you, help me contact the Flash race. I want them to open a passage for me and then bring a few friends back. Of course, no problem. I haven't breathed the air of the demon world for a long time. I've almost forgotten its smell. While speaking, the howling race suddenly stopped, and a wave of sadness spread from the soles of Wang Lu's feet. Wang Lu asked, "What's wrong? Are you homesick?" "No, I'm just thinking I'm so stupid. Master, will you not want me anymore? But I'm very useful. Master, don't you want to contact the Flash race? I'll help you find them." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Lu felt a violent shock from under his feet. It seemed to be invisible, and a ripple spread from under his feet to the distance. Was this the innate ability of the howling race, the roar that could directly connect to the demon world? TSK, this demon race was able to turn the 9 regions upside down twice in succession. Sure enough, they did have some ability. Fortunately, the proportion of them being amusing was high, which gave human beings a chance to make a comeback. After waiting for a long time, Wang Lu didn't feel any change. Just as he was about to ask, he heard a shameful voice from under his feet. "Sorry, Master, there's no one there. I think it might be because too much time has passed and things have changed. In the past, if I called at this frequency band, I would definitely be able to find someone. Master, don't abandon me. Please give me some time. I will try slowly. I will definitely find the Flash race for you and open the passage to the demon world." When he left the library, Zhou Mumu and the others were already waiting outside, together with Qianghua, Xiang Liang, Zhan Zai and the others. As South Pole Immortal Wang said, they each found their own opportunity in the library. It was just that they still needed some time to digest it. Of course, as for what they got in the library, no one was willing to disclose it. Even Wang Lu remained silent after they walked out of the library. In the end, it was the most charismatic Xingjing sect people who broke the silence. 3 months later we'll meet at my sect, Qianghua said and then looked at the other dwarves. Is everyone okay? The several lead disciples looked at each other and agreed to Qianghua's proposal to meet in Xingjing sect 3 months later. As for why Xingjing sect? The reason was very simple. The equipment and props needed to be provided by Xingjing sect people. Among the 5 major sects, Xingjing sect was the richest. If Xingjing sect didn't pay, who would? After the 5 of them reached an agreement, they didn't waste any time and dispersed. The library in the land of origin once again restored its tranquility. After no one knows how long, on the bookshelf on the 2nd floor, a moss-covered stone slightly trembled. I accidentally fell asleep? South Pole Immortal Wang was full of emotion. Time and tide wait for no man, my energy can't keep up. Little Wang Lu, I still have something to say. Hey, where's Wang Lu? The heavy rock slightly twisted its body, but Wang Lu's figure could no longer be seen. Young people are really impatient. Hey, where are Maya Aaron and San? Don't tell me they were all picked up by that stinky kid? Alas, he's still young. Those mushrooms can't be eaten casually. But that's fine, this is also his opportunity. Unfortunately, Wang Lu could no longer hear the voice of South Pole Immortal One. After leaving the land of origin of Kunlun Mountain, Wang Lu directly flew to the foot of the Immortal Mountain and met Aya. This beautiful western continent girl was sitting under a big tree with lush branches and leaves. As a swordsman, her sharp temperament perfectly combined with the ancient tree behind her, showing the incredible realm of the unity of man and nature. For a moment, Wang Lu, who was standing on the flying sword, was dumbfounded. However, at this time, a heavenly fire suddenly ignited beside him. The Kunlun elder who hated evil as if it was his enemy roared, "Crooked cultivator, die." The elder who was expelled by South Pole Immortal One was actually lying in ambush at the foot of the mountain, waiting for Wang Lu to go down the mountain. What kind of hatred was this? When the heavenly fire appeared, Wang Lu almost had no time to react. The attack of a peak deity stage cultivator was too fast. If it weren't for his void spirit root physique, which made him far more sensitive than ordinary cultivators, perhaps he wouldn't even know when he was burned. But at this time, although his primordial spirit had a reaction, his magical power and physical body could not keep up. Fortunately, the person who saved him was beside him. The girl who was sitting under the tree disappeared in a flash. At the same time, a golden sword light lit up beside her. The blazing heavenly fire disappeared under the illumination of the sword light. Elder He, who was lying in ambush with the invisibility spell, was also cut off by the girl's astonishingly sharp sword light. He was seriously injured and vomited blood. However, this practical elder reacted very quickly. Seeing that the opponent was a supreme-level cultivator, he immediately cast a spell and escaped from the battlefield using the fire escape technique. Before leaving, Elder He let out a shrill roar, "Wang Lu, you colluded with the devil race. Are you worthy of your Lingjian school's ancestors? Relying on your talent, you act unscrupulously, sooner or later you will die." Hearing this, Wang Lu frowned again and again. This medicine I can't stop. However, why this Kunlun sect elder was so hostile to him was still a mystery. After thinking about it, Wang Lu could only guess that when he was young, his wife was taken away by a tall, rich and handsome cultivator who looked somewhat like him. Since then, he had a grudge against this kind of person. In any case, Kunlun sect was not a good place to stay for a long time. Therefore, he directly used a Spirit Sword Heavenly Talisman to return to Spirit Sword Mountain. Wang Lu didn't even blink when he used the 100,000 Spirit Stones worth of talisman paper. The return location of this heavenly talisman was locked in the bamboo room of Non-Phase Peak. It was just that, with the activation of the talisman paper, the space was opened, and the scene in front of Wang Lu changed, which made him really widen his eyes and couldn't blink anymore. In the bamboo room, his master was leisurely soaking in a wooden barrel filled with hot water. She was actually taking a bath. Her snow-white delicate body was presented in front of him without any cover. Seeing Wang Lu and Aya suddenly appear in front of her, Wang Wu was also surprised. The next moment she stood up, and clear water flowed down from the curves of her plump body. The water droplets were crystal clear. The woman righteously pointed her finger at Wang Lu. "Spirit Sword Heavenly Talisman? You, this traitorous disciple, is simply outrageous. Quickly hand over your property to your master for safekeeping." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.